Do do do. Waiting on Rockfin, waiting on you. Waiting on Rockfin, waiting on you. All right.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right, all right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I do want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there for the roundtable, which we had earlier today, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. We have a really big show tonight. I'm going to get things started with our special guest in just a second. First and foremost, I do want to show you what we are discussing tonight. Tonight's theme is Talk is Cheap. We are going to focus on action tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because people are talking, but we're not seeing a lot of action. So let's go ahead and show you what we're talking about. Tonight, we are going to discuss, this is on the topic of Honduras and Venezuela, and Camilla's going to join us for this. Max Blumenthal just had a debate with, I called her a CIA cutout, Hermenia. He just had a debate with her in person about U.S. intervention in Venezuela, which I'm 100% against. We're going to get into that and what is Donald Trump's ultimate plan here. We're also going to discuss, I'm also going to discuss, I don't know if everybody heard about this, and corporate media isn't really covering the story. It's more so local media that's covering it. But right now, there is a lawsuit against Donald Trump. This just happened. It is a Jeffrey Epstein style lawsuit against him, and he is being sued for over $310 million. This is happening down in Florida, guys. And yes, it is connected to Jeffrey Epstein. We're also going to discuss, if you haven't heard about this, new information has just dropped, but Turning Point USA has accepted a debate challenge from Candace Owens about, of course, the way their organization has been operating. We have an update about that. It seems as though they're trying to be very sneaky here. And Candace is calling them out. I'm also going to tell you what's really significant about that date that they chose, December 15th. We're also going to discuss, if you didn't hear about what just happened in Tennessee, things are really bad for the Republican Party. No, the Dem challenger did not win, but she did move the numbers. And as we're going into 2026, I think that is a big, warning sign about what is to come for the midterm. So that story, that's actually a big deal. We're also going to discuss, there is a new update about the National Guard suspect that was accused of shooting those two National Guard members. Now more information has come out about him. And I'm just going to say, we were right from the get-go, right? What we thought about this particular situation. So we're going to get into that. And last but not least, if you do not know, today is the anniversary of Fred Hampton's death. So we are going to pay a tribute to him and talk a little bit about the vision that Fred Hampton had for, I would say, not just the U.S., not just Chicago, but the world. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and get started.
So we're getting audio noise on your mic. It's like it's weird. It's kind of coming and going.
Oh, hold on.
You're muted.
Can you hear it now?
Yeah. Give me a test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
I think that's good. All right.
It's probably because I unplugged it earlier. Yeah. Okay, sorry. It's probably because I unplugged it earlier today. All right, so let's go ahead and bring in our special guest. Her name is Camila Escalante. She's a journalist and she focuses on Latin America. Let's go ahead and bring her in. Hi, Camila. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, first and foremost, I want to start out with Honduras and then we'll make our way to Venezuela. This issue here with Donald Trump, what exactly is he trying to do with Honduras? Why does he have a special interest in that particular Latin American country right now?
Well, he has an interest in a lot of Latin American countries. As you know, he chose Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. And after everything that's happened in West Asia, we knew that eventually they were going to turn towards Latin America and the Caribbean again, and that was pending on the Marco Rubio agenda for Trump. And so Marco Rubio and his clan are very aware that Xiomara Castro and Manuel Zelaya, Manuel Zelaya was the president during the coup in 2009, were very close to Venezuela. And they once again, of course, or they have been during this entire period, but Honduras was on track to join the Bolivarian Alliance at the time of the coup. And essentially they joined as some sort of de facto or observer, or they're on their way to becoming a member of the Bolivarian Alliance currently. And they are one of these countries that has been able to recover democracy following 11 years of the coup and the regime that was installed by the United States, as well by fraudulent elections that elected, or in which Juan Orlando Hernandez took power, known as, the narco dictator of Honduras, during a large period of that 11-year coup. And President Xiomara Castro and Manuel Zelaya, who are regarded as socialists by the government of the United States, at least, they are trying to reconstitute the state and the institutions that were broken when Honduras became a narco state that was controlled by corporations, by foreign capital, and that was actually in a process of being parceled out, and sold to companies to be able to do whatever they want. The coup was literally put in place in order to rip apart the country and sell it off to companies to be able to do whatever they want with those natural resources, come up with their own laws. And that was called the Zedes Law. And so that was something that had to be repealed when this government came into power. And, you may have seen that in recent years, since Xiomara Castro took office that she has been very outspoken in not only denouncing the decades-long cruelty and genocidal blockade against the Cuban people, but she has also been very clear that sanctions against Nicaragua and Venezuela are absolutely unacceptable. And she tried to take a leading role when she was the president pro tempore of CELAC earlier this year. And she was very firm in her opposition to the Zionist genociding of the Palestinian people. And she wanted CELAC as a region and as a bloc to take a stand against that. And so many other progressive things that have happened during the short period that they were able to be in office. And the US regime and those far right Latin Americans who are conspiring with the US are preparing to retake control of the state because they still have their cells there. They still have their guys there. Some people who weren't prosecuted, they still have an oligarchy that has control of a lot of the country in Honduras. And so that's why it was so important for the Trump regime to seize on this moment and this election and tamper with it in every way possible. And as I've said on many occasions, we cover these elections as if they're legitimate, but every single one of the elections that takes place really anywhere around the world, but in particular in Latin America, has any number of puppets, of surrogates for the United States that are running as candidates for president or prime minister, and they are receiving funding and resources and help from the embassy. They're going to the embassy to conspire. They are acting as informants a lot of the time. And we've seen this time and time again in so many countries like Ecuador. Of course, in the case in Colombia, where the right is very strongly allied with the United States government. And so this is happening in Honduras as well. They have been meddling in this process from the very beginning. Xiomara Castro had very high approval ratings throughout everything, despite the slander of the corporate media in Honduras, which continues to be mostly, leaning towards the right wing, and that those families, those traditional 10 families of the Honduran oligarchy. And despite that, she's been able to accomplish quite a bit. And so now was the opportunity to attack the Libre Party, the left wing. And one of the things that Rixi Moncada, the candidate of the left-wing Libre Party, what she denounced in her exclusive interview with Telesur yesterday was that Hondurans received millions of messages to their phones saying that they wouldn't be receiving remittances from the United States if they voted for the communist candidate, Rixi Moncada. And also we saw all those messages coming from Trump and from other U.S. Congress people and others who were, who've been working behind the scenes and supporting these right-wing opposition candidates. So we've seen tons of meddling. There's issues with the CNE, the National Electoral Council there. What has been denounced by the candidate Rixi Moncada as well has been issues with transparency having to do with the rapid count, the TREP, which is the rapid transmission of results. And this has had technical problems. It has gone blank at times. People aren't able to track what the results are in real time. The website goes down and things like that. And it really seems like, we even saw the State Department put out a declaration the night of the election saying essentially that this would be arbitrated and decided by the OAS. Not the Honduran people, not its institutions, but that, the OAS is going to come and declare the winner, essentially. And so right now we have two right-wing candidates that, according to the CNE of Honduras, are running neck and neck. And it seems like, with all of the pressure building up around this election, that Rixi Moncada, although she has not conceded the election, but they're trying to say that she's in third place. She has every reason to doubt it. But that power will be handed over back to the right wing between one of the two candidates.
Very interesting. Of course, more U.S. meddling as usual. Why did Donald Trump want to pardon Juan Hernandez? There's so much hypocrisy here because first Donald Trump said that he was coming after Nicolas Maduro because drug trade and they're bringing drugs to the United States. Then he goes and announces that he wants to pardon Juan Hernandez, which from what I read was a real actual narco. But I guess from what I understand, he was a narco that was approved by the West, if that makes any sense. Why does he want to pardon him now?
I think he just does it to say that this is what, like, I'm in power, this is what I can do. Juan Orlando wrote a celebratory tweet on X saying that Donald Trump, very reasonable person, went and looked at the case, looked at the facts, and established that it wasn't true, that this is all part of a conspiracy against him and all that. But this is just this is just the Trump regime trying to revive and give power back to its allies. And because we know that none of this has anything to do with drugs anyways. Why would it have anything to do with drugs? One day it's about drugs, the next day they're saying that it's about, at least in the case of Venezuela, they're saying that it's actually about the fact that Venezuela, since Chavez, has been rigging more than 70 elections around the world. You know, in the past they said it's about democracy and freedom, but really, if you listen to the messaging, we know it's about oil, we know it's about natural resources and trying to control these territories and end the sphere of influence of the Bolivarian Alliance in Venezuela and attack China at the same time, et cetera, et cetera. But they've also been very clear that it's about combating socialism in the region. They want to exterminate anything that even has a semblance of anything socialistic. In the case of the Libre Party, this was a vast swath of the country that brought this government to power, not all of which are militants of the Libre Party or its base organizations. It's a lot of people who were just against the coup dictatorship, and they were against the repression and the jailing and the persecution of students and young people and everything else that took place during those years. So it's not this hardline socialist government, but it was enough for the, Florida's congressmen and senators to say, we need to put an end to what's going on there and make sure it doesn't spread. It's bad enough that we have people who are overly friendly to Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua sitting in Mexico and sitting in Colombia, and we can't allow that to continue in Honduras.
It always comes down to that, I feel like. And speaking of Venezuela, so just recently, there was a debate between Max Blumenthal and this young woman here. I want to bring this up on the screen. Her name is, I want to make sure I pronounce her name correctly, Hermania Polio. And this debate took place in New York City. And there were many things that were said here. And I do want to play one part here in particular. I want you guys to hear what Max had to say about the U.S. intervention in Venezuela, which, by the way, for those who are not aware, she seems to be on the side of, yes, they need to get Maduro out. So she's pro that for people who are not aware.
We need to talk about what they want. What does the Venezuelan opposition want? The Venezuelan opposition is led by Maria Corina Machado, who is a figure who has promised enormous amounts of exploitation of Venezuela's raw minerals and oil in exchange for these billionaire Trump cronies like Elon Musk supporting her campaign. Why do you think Elon Musk is juicing the otherwise unengaged with accounts of Hermania and Orlando in your For You tab constantly? He wants the lithium. As he said, we'll coup whoever we want. And here's what Maria Corina Machado, the Nobel War Prize winner, who will be joined in Oslo by the former lobbyist for the blood-stained Peruvian security minister, Vladimir Montesinos, Maria Elvira Salazar, had to say, we will open Venezuela for foreign investment. I am talking about a $1.7 trillion opportunity, not only in oil and gas. I mean, she said it with wild, crazed eyes, which is huge. We will open midstream, upstream, downstream to all companies, but also in mining, in gold, in infrastructure, power. She is just basically offering Trump cronies the open veins of Venezuela for them to parasitically suck out all the resources. Please keep it to the questions. I know it's hard to come out of your bubble sometimes and listen to the perspective of people who have been witnessing. Listen to the questions, please.
But you get the point there about Maria. One of the things that Max was bringing up here, This woman was being applauded on corporate media by like all of corporate media. They were like, kudos to her for getting the Nobel Peace Prize. This woman stated publicly that she wanted Donald Trump to come in and overthrow her own leader. So it's so obvious like who they choose to give these peace prizes to, someone who's actually calling for some type of violence. And my big thing is there what he said about the resources. I think that's the part that people can't forget. For those of us, particularly in the United States, we often hear that these countries are falling apart, that they're third world countries, but they don't tell you just how much resources these countries have.
Right. So I don't know how that debate got set up. I don't know if you watched it in its entirety. I didn't watch any of it. And I will not be watching it. But here's what I see. Max has done a great amount of reporting and following Venezuela, which has been very important, has reached a wide audience. And this other person is literally a, what do you call it? The daughter of somebody important. She's not like a real opposition person. She has her job in journalism because she has a mother who's a very famous media figure, which is Patricia Poleo, who's just a very outspoken opposition person. And so that's where she landed. So it's kind of funny to see them on the same stage. She's not a credible person for anything. But, you know, going back to what you were saying about Maria Corina, yeah, I think that at some point there are probably people in the United States regime that are thinking that they actually perhaps miss Juan Guaido. Because remember, Juan Guaido was saying a lot of the right things and fooled people somehow in Europe and North America and around the world, because he was presenting himself and being presented as progressive, as having, you know, certain concerns, whatever it is about the environment. They were even characterizing him in the corporate media as being like a centrist or whatever it is. And now you have Maria Corina, who is a proficient English speaker, so we can all, you know, listen to her. Even non-Spanish speakers can see her on CNN or wherever else, giving these interviews where she's very clear that she's going to business forums. She's spending her time meeting with big corporations and selling the resources, and particularly the oil of her country, to these companies before she even has power, before the opposition has power, before President Maduro leaves. She's already, you know, parceling out the country and its resources to these people. She's very clear that what Venezuela needs to do is to open up, and that it needs to be liberated for foreign capital to come in and do whatever it needs to do and exploit Venezuelan resources, et cetera, et cetera. So it's crystal clear to anyone who's watching any one of these interviews what she's all about. I mean, this has nothing to do with improving the lives of Venezuelans, which have been harmed by 1,000 unilateral coercive measures and the massive scale theft of the Venezuelan state and its assets, including the gold and Citgo and everything else. They've had planes taken, like the United States and other countries have just decided to steal entire aircraft. And so I think people are able to see for themselves that this woman is just a demon, which she looks like one. And so, you know, it's not really adding up that it's about whatever they said it was about before. And now she's clinging on to and jumping on to this fringe conspiracy theory that's coming out now that claims, authored by a CIA officer and the son of a longtime member of the Foreign Service, who dropped this book in the first week of September, that is the basis of all the claims being made right now about Venezuelan purportedly meddling in or rigging the elections in 70 or more countries. That book, that is literally released by intelligence agents, was released the same week when on September 2nd, the extrajudicial killings began and strikes began in the Caribbean Sea. So it coincided, and now they're doing this huge tour to try to get stupid people in the US to believe that not only are they shipping fentanyl and cocaine from Venezuela, but they're also coming and rigging the people's elections.
It's wild and crazy. I want to show you guys her response here, Hermania. This is just crazy what she says here.
I think all countries have the right to self-determination. The issue in Venezuela is that Venezuelans have lost that right. They voted last year in a dictatorship, so against all odds, they managed to win that election. They managed to prove that fraud, and then Maduro wouldn't leave. Again, the fraud was so blatant that people, like some people that engage in propaganda will defend it, but even Gustavo Petro and Lula could not sign on to it. That shows you how Venezuelans have lost the right to determination. I would like for them to get it back, but they can't do it alone. Citizens can't go against a regime that controls institutions, the military, the prisons. So Venezuelans have lost that right, and we would like it back.
That was really appalling for me to hear, Camilla, that she said that Venezuelans have lost the right to self-determination because Maduro won. Well, I don't understand how someone can say something like that and how dangerous that can be. Also, I wanted to ask your question about this. It looks like there have been some talks recently with Maduro and Donald Trump. Do you think that Maduro is going to end up leaving Venezuela?
No, I wouldn't entertain that thought for a second. He wouldn't entertain that thought for a second. Anyone who's in Venezuela wouldn't entertain that thought for a second, because whether you support the Bolivarian government led by President Nicolas Maduro or not, in Venezuela, it's very clear that they've been around for a very long time, and they've been trying to take out President Maduro for the last decade since the passing of Chavez. And during Chavez's tenure in office, they were trying to take him out too. Nobody ever ran away. No one has ever hidden. Hour after hour, we see the fake rumors or news headlines that are being disseminated largely through X that say that he is just about to, that he's hiding in a bunker. He's going to go to Istanbul to then run away to Tehran. Then he's supposed to be running away to Qatar. Then they show satellite images of areas of Caracas saying that this is where Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is building her bunker, like in open air. Like you can just see the place and they say it's a bunker. I mean, these people are running around holding diplomatic meetings, holding public meetings, announcing new infrastructure projects and new money for different public works and things like that. And so, no, he's not hiding in any bunker. He's visible essentially 7 days a week in one form or another. He has weekly programs, he has televised addresses, and all sorts of events. So that's certainly not happening. And if anything, he's getting more sleep now than he was getting years ago when things were particularly bad because of the way in which the sanctions really pummeled the country. In terms of making it very difficult for people to access some much needed supplies. And those have all been, of course, recovered because the economy has vastly recovered. Every time I've been there in the last 5 years, the situation has improved because national production is up. They don't have to import a lot of things, and now they've become food sovereign, which would have been very helpful when things were really bad in 2017, 2018. Nevertheless, they've been able to do that largely through the communes, largely through the base organizations and communities that form the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. They are taking initiatives, making proposals, asking the state for money. And through that, they're being able to do things like launch urban gardens and other forms of production that has helped alleviate the problems that existed because of these unilateral coercive measures. And by the way, today is actually the first what they're calling International Day Against Unilateral Coercive Measures at the United Nations. Venezuela spoke, Iran spoke, the European Union spoke, saying that they support sanctions and they defended their right to use sanctions as a legitimate tool, saying that they don't hurt people and that it's a peaceful way of going after brutal dictators and stuff like that. But of course, it was disastrous and a very difficult period, which Venezuela has been able to overcome. And now it's a country at peace. People are celebrating Christmas. Things are normal. The rumors and all of the chaotic circus that's happening is happening on the exterior, not inside the country.
See, this is why it's good to have people like you on, right? Because for a lot of people, especially here in the US, a lot of people only watch like corporate media, and it's easy to believe what they're telling you if you're not paying attention to other journalists like Camilla as well. Something that Max said here that I thought was really important about what should happen. She definitely does not like this.
Well, we need to organize. And that's why I still stay in the United States. I don't leave. I stay here because I was born here. This is my country. My family's here. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I actually grew up in a neighborhood where I saw the crack epidemic basically take over as the CIA was working to import drugs into our communities to fund its black operations in Central America. And it was really painful for me. And it showed me kind of what apartheid was like on a small scale. So I care about this country. Why should I go to Cuba? Why are you telling me to go to Cuba? Will you go back to Venezuela if the opposition takes over and civil war breaks out? I mean, come on. So we are going to struggle here, and we need to form bipartisan coalitions, work with people on the other side to do things like, for example, a campaign to register AIPAC as a foreign agent. And we need to take on, when it comes to this war, we need to take on the Miami Mafia that's taking this country into a disastrous war.
Yeah, so the point that Max was making there that I thought was really important is he was making that connection between foreign policy and the impact that we have right here in the United States. And he made that connection with the crack epidemic that happened in DC, which he lived through that. And I think sometimes people don't make that connection. And he said he wasn't going to go to Cuba because she told him that he should go move to Cuba and go move to Venezuela. So that was something that she told him to do. But
that's absurd. That's an absurd thing. I mean, I've had people say that to me a lot of times. And guess what? I have lived in Venezuela and Cuba. I just came back from Venezuela this week, and I'm going back in a few days. I know what it's like to live there, but I'm not actually Venezuelan, so it's not actually my country. But I'm really glad anytime anyone highlights the issues that are existing in the United States, because in Latin America and in the global South, our countries are constantly under a magnifying glass or a microscope. And everyone is always asking, including well-intentioned people who are, against imperialism, against the plunder of our countries, and against these sorts of acts of aggression. They're always wondering what exactly is going on in these countries. What really is the problem? People are very suspicious, skeptical, even if they know that these countries don't deserve, freedom bombs is what Max is calling them. But really, we should be, people in the global South haven't all had the opportunity to go to the US. And it's not just like a Skid Row, Los Angeles thing. In every urban center, in every large city of the United States, but also rural poverty, there's people living completely disenfranchised. They are marginalized from society, and they have high levels of dependency and drug use unseen to most other places of the earth, both developed countries and countries that have been plundered by colonialism and are still suffering from that. The US has really grave problems that are tied to its culture and the culture of violence and neglect, and that culture of exclusion. That is the model that is capitalism. The model of capitalism is to exclude people, whereas socialism exists to include people, to bring people from the furthest corners that have been the most disenfranchised, the most harmed, the most vulnerable because of historic colonialism in the continent, because of whatever sort of discrimination they have experienced, and equalize our income, our access to education, and everything else. That's what socialism and the model that they're trying to develop there in Venezuela, which has influenced other countries around the region, is trying to accomplish. Whereas in the United States, it's a situation of neglect where people have actually gained the ability to have their rights recognized, and now that's being rescinded. People have even fewer rights now than they did 10 years ago in the US. So it's really good to look at who is the country, what is the regime that's perpetuating this hybrid war against Venezuela and against all of our countries, and look and see, there's this sort of argument that, which is true, that people in the US and the global north are benefiting because of imperialism through the exploitation of citizens of the global south. They are, but at the same time, there's people who are not really benefiting that much because they're living in total shit. Because to be poor in the United States is not good. You don't have health care. You have worsening levels of education. You will live, in an area that has problems with violent crime. You can't take care of your elderly parents, and you don't have, maternal rights and things like that exist in other countries that have, more socialized systems and programs. And so, this is what the United States is. I wish people of the world knew how grave the situation is, how dark it is. When I think of the United States, of course, I think of my friends, my comrades, the people who I organize and do solidarity with, and all the great people there. But at the same time, it's very dark. So many of these societal ills happen there that are unseen in other places.
Very well said there, Camilla. And I just want to remind people what happens when the U.S. intervenes, and especially when they use this excuse of democracy. Shout out to Angelo for this one. When the U.S. wants to turn Venezuela into a beacon of liberty and democracy, we all know what that means. And here are some examples. Iraq, before, after. Libya, before, after. Syria, before, after. Yugoslavia, which a lot of times is not mentioned, before, after. So just a reminder there for folks. Camilla, can you please let everybody know where they can follow your work?
I will most likely, you'll be able to find my work on my X, which is Camila Press, and also Calcecha News. I try to share my Press TV stuff that I produce on my X. It's also Prensa Camila on Instagram, and I'll be back in Venezuela next week for this very important international peace conference that's going to be held with huge participation from all over the world, that is going to be demanding an end to the militarization of the region and to the aggression against our peoples and countries.
Awesome. Camilla, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
All right, guys, that was Camilla. Again, please follow her work. She does great work there, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's important that we hear from people that are actually, in these countries so they can tell us what's happening on the ground. Corporate media gets this wrong, and they get it wrong on purpose. They do have a common agenda, so we cannot forget that. All right. We have a lot to get into tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, tonight's theme is talk is cheap. And I think you'll see what I mean by that. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons, and then we'll keep it moving with the next story, ladies and gents. Thank you to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Really do appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories here. We have Ultimate, Sabinators, there's Sabsters. Don't forget about those guys. We also have Sabbies because they're pretty cool too. And last but not least, we also have members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. I like to call them newbies. Let's give it up for Roy. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your support. Really do appreciate you around here. Again, ladies and gentlemen, the theme is talk is cheap. So let's see some action. Let's go ahead and, thank you so much, Russ Khan. Hello, everybody. Sabby, congratulations on reaching 300K subscribers, and the Boston documentary was outstanding. Thank you. Did you come across in your research the 1989 infamous Charles and Carol Stewart murder case in Boston? I didn't come across that in my research, but I am familiar with it. Yeah, interesting story for those who are not aware. Definitely check that out. Talk is cheap, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep this show on the road. If you haven't had a chance to do so, smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Let's go ahead and get into this next story. Yeah, man. 2026 is the midterms, and something big just happened in Tennessee in that special election. Now, many of you may have known about this already, but there was a Democrat challenger that was running in this particular district, that Tennessee District 7. And it was looking close in the polls, right? People were saying, whoa, how is it possible that a Democrat is doing so well in a red district? So that is a district that Donald Trump handsomely won. She did not win. However, she did move the numbers. And that's what a lot of people are talking about today. The fact that this could be a prediction of what is to come in 2026. I think what we're starting to see is that some of those independents that may have supported Trump in 2024 are moving in the other direction to the Democratic Party. Let's go ahead and get into some of those numbers that happened the other night. Afton Ben was running against Matt Van Epps in this Tennessee special election. And of course, like I said, Matt Epps did go on to win 53.5%, as was estimated at that point in time, with 75% in, and she was at 45.5%. However, she was able to make gains in this district that Kamala did not. And that's what people are sounding the alarms about. A quick recap here.
Folks, I've been dancing around it. I think if you've been able to read between the lines, you've known for the last 20 minutes, but it really kind of became obvious. Matt Van Epps, the Republican nominee for Congress in Tennessee's 7th District, has won the special election to replace Representative Mark Green, the Republican who resigned his seat. Van Epps defeating Democrat Afton Bain, 3/4 of the vote now in. It is an 8-point margin for Van Epps. It may climb still as more votes come in, but this is a district, again, that Donald Trump won by 22 points last year. He won it by 15 points in 2020. It is a district where polling last week, somewhat surprisingly, showed a very close margin of 2 points, a flood of national attention from both parties in the final days of this campaign. And I think it seems pretty clear Republicans talked about waking up their base with that flood of activity in the last week. It certainly seems, based on the performance of Van Epps with election day voters, people who went to the polls today and voted, didn't vote early, went today. Van Epps is getting big turnout, it would appear, and massive margins, enough to withstand strong early vote performance from Bain, strong performance, I would say, overperformance from Bain in Davidson County. So again, Matt Van Epps, the winner of Tennessee.
So did you hear what he said? Strong performance from Afton Bain in Davidson County. Davidson County includes Nashville. I have a friend that lives in Nashville. So she was able to make gains, at least for the Democratic Party. There's a number of things here that could have happened. It could be that more people came out and supported the Democrat, or it could be that less people showed up to support the Republican candidate. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that that is a special election. Special elections usually do have a lower turnout, so just keep that in mind. However, it does still say something that the numbers are moving towards the Democratic Party in a red district, and it did not work that way in 2024 for Kamala Harris. And some people are saying that this is a foreshadowing of what is to come. We're going a little bit more here, and I'm going to show you what's happening with the GOP overall.
7 special election. Folks, stay tuned if you're still watching, but I got to do an update for News Now. You're going to get to watch that. I got to keep my mouth shut for the...
Yeah. So he went on to win it. The Wombat said Tennessee 7 is Marsha Blackburn's old House district. Not surprised it went to Republicans still. Yeah, I remember Marsha Blackburn. So let's look at what happened. Check this out. From Politico, despite the loss, Democrats overperformed in bright red Tennessee House race. This is the part that I think a lot of people don't really want to reckon with. They are saying that Afton Ben At that time, she was on pace to significantly outperform Kamala Harris. Let me just show you here. Here we go. With 95% of the vote in, Afton Ben, I forget how to pronounce her name, was behind Republican Matt Van Epps 54% to 45% in the closely watched special election on Tuesday. The narrow margin gave Democrats cause to celebrate as they fight to retake the House next year, and it spelled trouble for Speaker Mike Johnson's efforts to retain his slim majority. Even though Van Epps won, the Republicans significantly underperformed Trump's 22-point rout in the district last year, as Ben lured voters with a well-funded campaign focused on ... affordability. So she ran a populist campaign. So here's what this really means, folks. In the Republican Party, they're watching this. People have to remember that in the House, yes, Republicans have control of the House, but it's slim. So come 2026, the Democrats are pretty much hoping that they're going to be able to flip that. And this race in particular, I think, is very important because that's a red district. This is what I was telling people when I told you guys just a couple of nights ago that I have friends down in the Carolinas, and they even told me that some of the people who supported Trump in 2024 are already swinging back over towards the other direction. So this is what happens when people, when people aren't getting the affordability that they need, when they're not getting those core economic, issues met for their lives, people will swing back and forth. We saw it happen. We saw people, vote for Trump in 2016, and some of those people turned around and voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Then we saw people vote for Biden in 2020 and turn back around and vote for Donald Trump because of economic issues. And then we also saw a lot of people stay home. So don't forget that. It goes on to say here, Democrats projecting confidence after their election day overperformance last month throughout the country quickly highlighted the thinner than usual margin as a sign of their strength heading into next year's midterms when they must net 3 seats to seize control of the House. This is what people need to see. They only need 3. That's the thing about having that narrow margin, right? So let me show you what the numbers are showing now. This is definitely not good for the Republican Party. Not good at all.
Overnight, there was a special election for an open House seat in the state of Tennessee, and the Republican candidate won. And a win is a win, right? Well, still, Democrats seem to be smiling this morning. Why? Because the margin of defeat was much slimmer than Republicans have been doing in that district. With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton. Let's talk about the numbers.
Let's talk about the numbers. Republicans should be running for the hills this morning because the blue wave is building, my dear friend, Mr. Berman. What are we talking about here? Well, Matt Van Epps, the Republican candidate, he won it by 9, but this is a district that Donald Trump won by 22 points, 15 points, 17 points. This is a 13-point gain for the Democrats in terms of the margin, and excuse time for Republicans is over because I hear all about these special elections. Oh, the turnout's so low. It's not representative of what happened in the midterm election. The turnout last night in Tennessee's 7th district was equal to the turnout in the 2022 midterm election.
Pause. That's the part I wanted everyone to really hear. So the numbers are showing that the turnout from that special election were equal to the 2022 midterm election. That is not good. Donald Trump is, I know he's sitting back there trying to pretend like this isn't happening. Mike Johnson is just like, whatever, we got this in the bag. But people are shifting, and everybody needs to pay attention to this. That's a big difference. You don't go from plus 17, plus 15, plus 22. So in 2024, Donald Trump had plus 22 in that district, the highest of all those years. And now with this particular House seat, plus 9. Let's continue.
So the blue wave, it seems to be building right out of center of Tennessee.
Interesting. I mean, so in terms of the numbers, the turnout looked like a regular midterm election, not a special election.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And of course, we have, what about 11 months?
All right. What have we seen in terms of trends in all the special elections the last year?
Okay. I wouldn't necessarily give a hoot and a hollering about one special election in Tennessee. I love the people in Central Tennessee, but Central Tennessee is nothing special compared to the rest of the country. But what we see happening is, take a look here. Okay, 2025 U.S. House special elections. Dems outrunning Kamala Harris. A lot of blue here. A lot of blue, which is what I think the nation might look like a year from now if these results hold. Arizona 7. You see a 17 outperformance of Kamala Harris. 23.
Let's pause here for Arizona, because that's a big one. Arizona plus 17 for Democrats. Donald Trump won Arizona. Biden won it in 2020. Donald Trump won it in 2024. Look at these states, guys. Plus 17 for Arizona, plus 23 for Florida, plus 16 for Florida District 6, plus 13 for Tennessee 7. Plus, all of the numbers are moving in favor of the Democratic Party. This is that pendulum that I was telling you about. This is what happens when people don't get their economic needs met.
Points in Florida 1, 16 points in Florida 6, 13 points in Tennessee 7, 28 points in Texas 28, and then 17 points in Virginia 11. So we've seen it throughout the nation, whether you go from the suburbs of Washington, D.C., all the way to the southwest in Arizona, whether you're looking at Texas, whether you're looking at Tennessee, whether you go down to Florida, we have seen the Democratic outperformance of Kamala Harris happening across the political map. What happened last night in Tennessee ain't just staying in Tennessee. It is spreading itself throughout the nation. As I said, to me, looking at these results, it looks like a blue wave is building.
And it's not.
And we're going to pause here, because here's the thing. I didn't think that she was going to win. I didn't think that she was going to beat the Republican, because I've seen this thing before where the numbers will show that it looks like it's pretty close. But when the voting day happens, particularly, especially in a district that is a red district, people come out to vote that didn't participate in the poll, right? So I didn't think that that was going to turn blue. But what he is showing you is that the numbers are moving in that direction. 2026 is just around the corner. And the crazy part about all this is, at the end of the day, I think what people are going to realize is, okay, we keep switching back and forth. A lot of those independents, they keep switching back and forth, and you're still running into the economic problem. And that's because of this. The American empire is on a decline. And that's something that we just cannot sit up here and try to ignore anymore. We can't skate our way around that issue. This is why when I say talk is cheap because a lot of these candidates, they talk a good game when they're running, but then once they get in, they go along with what the party leadership wants. That can only continue for so long. When people are sitting back and they're noticing that prices think about how many years it's been. Pandemic was in 2020. It's almost 2026. The economy has been a mess for the past 5 years, 6. So that can only work for so long. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where people are like, listen, none of you guys are really helping us. None of you guys are doing anything for the working class people. And what I would hope is that at that point, more people would say, you know what, we need to start voting for people that are independent. We need to vote for people that are third party. We need to also build dual power within our own communities. And I think that's the piece that's really missing. It's not just about the voting, because at the end of the day, when you face these economic issues, who is there to help you out? A lot of times it's family, friends, people within the community, those of us that do mutual aid. So my hope is that people are going to start to put more focus on building those dual power systems. We have another mutual aid event that's coming up December 20th. For those of you that are in the Boston area. So I'll be sharing information about that as well, because that's just the reality. It's cold. It's really cold right now. We're dealing with what is called this polar vortex or whatever they want to call it. It's very cold right now. Nobody wants to be outside right now. If you don't have a home, this is definitely not the time to be homeless, right? So people need help. And yeah, electoral politics, as I said before, it's one of the tools that you can use in your toolbox. But my fear is that all this swinging back and forth, it makes me feel like people don't really get it. That like when Democrats were in power, they could have done these things. Republicans are in power now, they could do these things. Ask yourself why you keep like switching back and forth. You know, ask yourself that question. Let's go on a little bit more here.
Just that it's blue. It's that it's double-digit blue.
It is
in
double.
this case.
Exactly right. It's double-digit blue. I will note, I looked at the stats. If, in fact, you had a 13-point shift like we saw in Tennessee, and you applied that to the 2024 presidential map, we are talking about a gain for Democrats of north of 40 seats.
All right. In terms of the history, what does this mean as we project forward?
Okay. So we're looking at these special elections. We're sort of applying these hypothetical numbers, right, in terms of, Democrats would gain north of 40 seats if, you moved everything over, 13 points from the 2024 presidential result. But we actually have history to show that what happens in special elections doesn't just stay in special elections. It spills over to the midterm results. Special elections and midterm results. I just keep going to this. When a party outperformed in special elections since 2005, 5 out of 5 times, they went on to win a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. What happened last night in Tennessee is a very, very bad omen for Republicans and a very, very good omen for Democrats.
And this is something that I feel like they're not really I feel like Trump isn't really focusing on. The Republican Party altogether isn't really wanting to pay attention to, but this is happening. And I know some people said, well, it's just his first year, but look how much he's done within this first year. And he ran on this message of we're going to fix it. I'm going to get things back to the way it used to be. Biden messed up the economy. I'm going to fix it. And people are looking around and people say it's not fixed. So those core economic issues, that's a big one. And she ran on affordability. So talk is cheap, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to actually do the action. You have to actually do what you said you were going to do when you were running the campaign. So stay tuned for 2026 because that's going to be interesting. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. All right. Thank you, Fuzzy Balls. I stand in solidarity with Palestine, Russia, and Venezuela. I stand against the warmongers in Israel, Ukraine, NATO, and America. Shout out to Fire, who just became a Sabby member. Let's give Fire a big whoop, whoop. And thank you, Fuzzy Balls. Neither the Democrats or the Republicans will make the lives of everyday Americans better. Both have sold their souls to Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, and healthcare lobby, and both hate us. King of Hill said Trump is cooked if the Democrats swept the midterm elections. Yeah. Yep. And thank you, Fuzzy Ball. I'm sorry, that name just cracks me up. Fuzzy Balls. What do Democrats and Republicans have in common? They will both smile in our faces, then they stab us in the back when they think no one is looking. Thank you so much for that. Okay. All right, we're going to go on to the next story. This story is wild. We have an update about the National Guard suspect, the gentleman that they said alleged that he shot and killed one of the National Guard members, that was Sarah Beckerman, and the other one is in critical condition. When this story came out, if you were like me, we were like, okay, this is a false flag. What is going on here? Some of the things that we found out about him in particular was that when he was 15 years old, he was recruited by the CIA to go work with the CIA at 15 years old. So imagine your brain being conditioned at that age. At 15 years old, your brain isn't even finished fully developing yet, meaning that you can't make some rational decisions that an adult would make. So just keep that in mind. Now it is being reported, and this is crazy. Now it is being reported that there may be intel that shows why he allegedly drove across country to do what he did. And it's exactly what you guys are thinking. Just to go back, let's show you what they said about him during this attack.
The suspect in Wednesday's attack on 2 National Guard members in downtown Washington, D.C., now facing a murder charge after 20-year-old U.S. Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom died of her injuries. The other wounded guardsman, 24-year-old Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, remains in critical condition. CNN's Brian Todd is near the scene of the attack with the latest details. Brian?
Right, Boris, we have some incremental but important new information regarding the one guardsman who was wounded in the attack, Andrew Wolf, 24 years old. A spokesperson for the Joint Task Force DC, which oversees the National Guard, told us a short time ago that Wolf is still in critical condition. The spokesperson said she was not aware of, at the moment, of any pending surgeries or other procedures for Wolf, but they're trying to nail that down. So we hope to get some additional information regarding his treatment and what he may be going through in just a short time. And we can also reiterate the information that we know about the deceased National Guard member, Sarah Beckstrom, who lost her life as a result of this shooting. She was 20 years old, from Somersville, West Virginia. She began her military service on June 26, 2023, and she was assigned to the 863rd Military Police Company. Her family and friends talking to CNN extensively about how dedicated she was as a Guard member over the past couple of days.
And we know that she died. We also know that, according to her boyfriend, that she did not agree with her deployment in DC because she said they weren't allowed to do anything. And so she felt like, according to him, why are we even here if we can't even do anything? Right? So we know that she had complaints about that as well. Let's fast forward to get to the suspect part. Just to remind you what they said about him at that time.
The murder in this case, he had previously faced 3 counts of assault with intent to kill while armed and 1 count of possession of a firearm with the intent to commit violence. Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi had said earlier that he was going to face the death penalty. She said that if a service member had lost their life as a result of this attack, that they would do everything that they could to seek the death penalty. And of course, unfortunately, that has come to pass. So we're going to see how the legal process plays out for the suspect. In the meantime, Boris, what we could show you is a very moving scene here at the scene of the shooting. This makeshift memorial has really grown exponentially since we've been here just over the past day.
So let's go back to this picture so I can make my point. At the time, corporate media and the Trump administration said that this guy was dangerous. He was this Afghan national, and they were coming in to invade the country. You guys know the whole narrative around that. And what they were basically trying to do is make you fearful of Muslims, right? And I told you that's something they're going to do. They're going to divert your attention to the Muslim population so that you are not focused on what Israel is doing, right? Because Israel is still killing Palestinians in Gaza. So they got people to turn this way for just a second about this particular guy. And some people didn't stop and think, why would this guy who's been in this country for years, why would he all of a sudden out of nowhere just drive across the country to shoot these National Guard members? And I did think about that. And I said, I don't know, man. They didn't even want to tell you that he was working on the side of the CIA in the Afghanistan. He wasn't working on the side of the Taliban. So he was working on the side of the CIA to kill his own people. That's what he was doing. And the reason why him and others like him ended up coming to the United States is because they were basically under threat in Afghanistan after the U.S. pulled out. They were stuck to live there with the people that they were fighting against, their own people. So, of course, they were in danger. So he was allowed to come to the United States, first under the Biden administration, but he was vetted again by the Trump administration this year. This year. No criminal record, no priors, but out of nowhere, he would just drive across the country and do this, right? Let me show you what they're telling you now. This is why I say talk is cheap, right? Because now it is being reported that this gentleman may have been blackmailed. You see, the story gets a little bit thicker, folks. I said, folks. The story gets a little bit nasty. Feds probe stunning twists in DC National Guard murder. Let's get into this here. So here we go. I told you it just didn't make any sense to me. The Washington shooter and a deadly offer he could not refuse. Let me make this a little bit bigger. A lot of people are not talking about this. Corporate media is very silent about this right now. The former Afghan fighter who killed one National Guard member and left a second critically injured just 2 blocks from the White House may have been blackmailed into carrying out the shooting. The swamp has learned. Here we go. U.S. intelligence is investigating information that a Taliban hit squad threatened to murder Ramanallah Lochinwall's family in Afghanistan unless he opened fire on American troops in the nation's capital. Let me highlight this here. Because this blood right here is on the U.S. hands. This blood right here is on the U.S. hands, okay? U.S. intelligence is investigating information that a Taliban hit squad threatened to murder Ramanullah Lochinwall's family in Afghanistan unless he opened fire on American troops in the nation capital. Why would they do that? Because again, he worked with the CIA. They committed war crimes in that operation in Kandahar, worked with the CIA, committed war crimes against his own people. These things follow you. And I hope now more people start to see like what I was saying, because people are like, oh, it's conspiracy talk. No. It just did not make any sense. No one just wakes up one day after they've been here for years and says, I'm going to drive all the way across the country and do this. That didn't make any sense. No priors, no criminal record. Come on. Let's go on a little bit further here. It's wild, man. It's wild. Donald Trump and his MAGA acolytes, including FBI Director Kash Patel, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, and War Secretary Pete Hegseth, have described the 29-year-old married father of 5 as a monster and a terrorist, and insisted he would likely face the death penalty. He's being charged with murder. Now they're saying that there was a hit on his family. But investigators are asking themselves why a man who was vetted by 2 administrations and with no criminal record, no history of extremism, should drive across the country on an apparent mission to shoot at heavily armed U.S. military personnel with a revolver. One line of inquiry they are seriously pursuing, according to sources with knowledge of the investigation, is that Lochinwall was made an offer he could not refuse. Either he accepted the mission or his family in Afghanistan would be beaten, murdered, and possibly beheaded. Think about that for a second. Real Tim knows what's up. Think about this for a second. And what if it didn't actually come from the Taliban, but it came from, like Tim is saying, it came from the Mossad? Let's go on. Lochinwall was a member of the Afghan Scorpion forces, working closely with the CIA as a GPS tracking specialist. He helped the U.S. military escape from Kabul in the shambolic retreat from Afghanistan in August 2021. Between August 14th and the 30th, more than 120,000 people were airlifted from the Kabul airport. The Afghan fighter joined one of the last flights because he served the United States and due to the danger he would be in if he were left behind. So let's think about something here, folks. This guy was used by the U.S. to basically kill his own people. And then it's like after that mission is done, it's like, okay, well, we'll let you come stay here in the US, but as if this was never going to come back to bite him in the ass. Ever at any point. And I would say the fact that he was recruited when he was just a teenager, I would say this guy might have been programmed. Now, I don't mean programmed like a robot, but I would say this guy might have been programmed to the point that, again, at 15 years old, you don't know how to make the best decisions. There's a reason why at 15, you are not legally an adult. He could have been brainwashed. They could have manipulated him. They could have done so many things to this kid at 15. Not like it hadn't happened before. About 700 Scorpion Force members are understood to be detained in Afghanistan because they worked with America and its allies. So like I said, talk is cheap because this blood that was spilled is on the U.S. government. In the 5 years since the U.S. evacuation, a Taliban military unit called Yarmouk 60 has devoted itself to tracking down and in some instances killing Afghans who work for the West. This part right here. As if this would not follow him. This is what I was talking about. Earlier this year, a member of the Afghan Triples, an elite special forces unit that was set up, trained, and funded by the UK to combat the Taliban, managed to leave the country and get to Germany, hoping his family could follow on later. In retaliation, Yarmouk 60 killed his wife, father, and 4 children, including 2 little girls who were beheaded, the source told The Swamp. So my question is, what is Kash Patel and Pam Bondi going to say now? This administration just keeps looking worse and worse and worse. What are they going to say now? What are they going to say? Because I'll tell you, what I would say is, well, I don't know. Maybe the CIA shouldn't be recruiting teenagers. 2, maybe the CIA needs to disappear. These intel agencies need to go. They're dangerous. They're killing people, including those who worked with them. But they're not going to tell you this story. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel are not going to tell you this story I'm telling you right now because it hurts them. It makes them look bad. So they don't want to get into all of that. And here we are. The U.S. government created him. It is by no means our only line of inquiry, said an intelligence source who has worked closely with authorities trying to help Afghans with the target on their back because of their work with the West. People in this country have no idea about the level of stress these people are under. Most of them have families back home, and if the Taliban cannot get to them, they are making it very clear they will go after their families. And this is what happens when you sign up to work with the U.S. government. So this is a known thing. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. For the rest of his life. And here's another thing. Who's to say they still won't go after his family? If this is the case, who's to say they still won't do that? It's almost like this guy was a sacrifice. And for what in the end? 20 years in Afghanistan? Hunger? Starvation in Afghanistan after the U.S. destabilized it? Ruined it? Destroyed it? All of it for what? Listen to this part here. Lockenwall was said to be worried about money and concerned that the Trump administration would block his green card application and force him to return home. Trump has blamed the Biden administration for allowing Lock and Wall into the country, but it was Trump's own administration which granted him asylum in April 2025. So if he was worried that Trump would block his green card application and send him home, why would he drive across the country and shoot 2 National Guard officers? Because then you're definitely getting out of here. That's how we know there's more to the story. This part here, and then it goes on about Sarah Beckstrom. Of course, you guys know she died, and Andrew Wolf is still critically injured, so he remains hospitalized. So the Pentagon has been contacted for a comment, but of course they did not comment. This is absolutely insane. Trained right here with the West, with the CIA, to do the bidding of the West, only in the end to have to deal with this. Now, whether you believe the story or not, I got to tell you again, I just found it odd to drive all the way across the country to do that, and you had no priors before. No behavioral issues, none of that. Intel hard at work. So, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Blondie, what do you have to say now? Let's go to some of the comments, ladies and gentlemen. Julio says, remember most Afghanistan people got caught in Iran doing work for Israel. That's a big one there. A big one. E.G. Butler said, damn, can't trust these Americans. Ty says Manchurian Candidate or Burbe Legacy. Red Cowboy says, check his phone. That's a good one. It's just crazy, everything that is going on now, because I'm just like, I feel like more people are paying attention and starting to ask more questions, which you should. But now I look back on it and I wonder, how often has this happened before? How much of what we have been told has been true? Let's go to the comments there on Rockfin. And then we'll go to part 2 of Type V and C here. Thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin, Dave. Thanks to Sabby. Thank you. And thank you for the tip, Stephanie. This Saturday, December 6th, is National Day of Action for No War on Venezuela. 50 plus cities are participating across the country. Info at answercoalition.org. Yeah, Answer Coalition puts on a lot of those the massive protests that you guys have seen before. There were a lot of them with Gaza as well. So definitely check that out. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Okay. We're keeping it moving on, aren't we? I got another story for you that's going to blow your mind. That's also not getting a lot of media coverage, corporate media coverage. Peep this, fam. So more information is being released about Jeffrey Epstein and those files. And there was a bombshell lawsuit that was just dropped the other day. And I'll search again. But what I noticed is the only people who are reporting it is local outlets. So first and foremost, this involves Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump. And it's massive. Now, to show you the connection, right now, the oversight Democrats, they have released photos of Jeffrey Epstein's private island that are harrowing look behind Epstein's closed doors. See for yourself. I want to show you some of these pictures. Like this one here is creepy as hell. Why are there like these images here, these masks of old men's faces? This is a massage room. It looks like a massage room. Actually looks like it could be a dentist room. That kind of looks like a dentist chair. But also, I see the table back there. It looks like it could also be a masseuse room. Anyway, what is the deal with the mask on the wall of the old men? These are old men's faces on the wall. All around the wall. Look at it. What is that? What's that about? Again, from Epstein Island. Let's look at this as well. Someone said wall of horrors. Yeah. That is weird. Why are these old men's faces on the wall? Here's another one. This looks like a sauna. Looks kind of like a sauna or a shower. One of those community showers or a sauna. Looks similar to that. Check out this phone. If you look at the phone here, some of the names you can see and others are redacted. It says Darren, Rich, Mike, Patrick, Larry. But notice that some of these names they covered them here. They're redacted with the black marks. Why are those names redacted? Whose names are those? Because I'm curious. Interesting, huh? Kitchen. And then these are the G lines, JEE, different lines here. But they redacted a couple of those names. Another picture here. I guess this is one of those rooms.
It's getting nice and warm in here.
Like I said, the creepiest thing to me are the masks on the wall. That was just creepy, right? Why is this important? Okay. I've been telling you guys a lot of these actions that Donald Trump has been doing more recently have been over the top, right? Whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Honduras, whether it's just crazy stuff. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The Pete Hegseth boat attacks. All of this is a distraction. Because guess what they're not talking about? He's not talking about this lawsuit that just dropped in Palm Beach County. And I want to know why major outlets are not covering this story. Donald Trump is sued over Epstein identical trafficking in Palm Beach County. Yes, this is a real lawsuit. I'm going to show you the actual pages. It's over 120 pages. But they're not talking about it, folks. Wait till you see who else they name here. A new lawsuit filed in Palm Beach County accuses Donald Trump, along with Elon Musk and Bill Gates, federal agencies, and other high-profile figures of participating in what plaintiffs describe as an Epstein identical trafficking and exploitation venture spanning nearly a decade. The filing submitted in the 15th Judicial Circuit, they are asking for over $300 million in damages. Let me highlight this. $300 million in damages, and asserts that the alleged conduct mirrors the operational patterns of the Jeffrey Epstein network. And no corporate outlet is talking about this. This just happened. How many of you heard about it before today? Let's go on more. According to the complaint, the plaintiffs claim the defendants engaged in coercion, retaliation, and misappropriation of intellectual property by benefiting financially and politically from proprietary technology the plaintiffs say they were pressured to produce. Wait till you hear about the technology. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because the words are there we go. The filing argues that the alleged trafficking scheme follows a structure identical in every material aspect to Epstein's sighting: grooming beginning in 1998, the use of billionaire-backed foundations as silencing mechanisms, and sexual assaults allegedly employing the same Blitz-style methods documented in Epstein victim depositions. I'll pause for a second. I stand to be corrected. An international outlet that reported this is one. WION. The rest is local. Continue on here. Yes, Kinman, don't forget that that Naomi Campbell is, that's right, also part of that. Here we go. The lawsuit also links allegations to 2 prior cases in Arizona and New Jersey where default judgments were entered against related defendants after they failed to respond. Plaintiffs argue that those unrebutted findings should carry over to the Florida action, effectively establishing the alleged trafficking venture, the claimed intellectual property theft, and the retaliatory acts described. The filing includes references to dozens of police reports, alleged assaults, judicial threats, and what plaintiffs described as coordinated efforts to obstruct their attempts to seek help. That's something you'll see. Let me scroll down and see if it loaded. Okay, yeah. That's something you'll see here in the documentation. It's over 149 pages. The police reports. So there were actual police reports that were filed. Why are we just now hearing about this? Remember, I told you guys every time they got closer and closer to releasing those Epstein files, shady things would start to happen. Oh, let's go to war with Venezuela. Oh, let's pardon the narco from Honduras. Oh, no, let's strike people in the Caribbean in the boats. They probably knew this was coming. The suit also accuses Elon Musk and Bill Gates and affiliated institutions of misappropriation confidential innovations, including a cybersecurity system, a defense architecture platform, and a non-hormonal contraceptive technology. Well, the plaintiffs say these were provided under promises of support, but later used without permission, echoing past claims that Epstein's associates exploited victims' businesses, ideas, and creative works under the guise of philanthropy. The contraceptive technology, let's remember what's been going on with Bill Gates in Africa, right? Remember we talked about that? That's something he had been working on, going to these African countries. In its request for relief, the lawsuit asked for more than $310 million in compensatory damages, additional punitive damages, the restoration of custody rights, sweeping injunctions, blocking defendants from using any of the disputed technologies. Plaintiffs also seek an expedited jury trial and mandatory federal contracting remedies. The case was filed November 24th, 2025, is now pending review in Palm Beach County, where Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence contributes to establishing venue. The full complaint is below. Eric, let's put the link to this in the chat so people can look at this on their own time as well, because it is long. But this is the document here. This is not fake, folks. Here's the case number. In the Circuit Court of the 15th Judicial Court, Palm Beach County, Florida, plaintiff versus Donald J. Trump, and it's multiple people. And this is what it says. The complaint is for human trafficking, civil damages, intellectual property theft, misappropriation of trade secrets, conspiracy, international infliction of emotional distress, and declaratory and injunction relief. They are demanding a jury trial. So even though they're suing for $310 million, they're demanding a trial by a jury. This is not good. And this is something else you need to pay attention to. If this was just about money, they would just say, let's settle out of court. Let's get the money and go. But they want a trial. So that don't look good for Gates. That don't look good for Trump. That don't look good for Elon Musk. And let's go back for a second. Remember when Melinda Gates had the interview with Gayle King about Bill Gates and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? What did Melinda Gates say? What Melinda say? If I remember correctly, Melinda said she did not like Jeffrey Epstein the first moment she met him, and that he made her feel very uncomfortable, and that she told Bill that she did not want to be around him. She picked up on it like that. What that tell you? What is going on in these streets? What does that tell you, folks, if she picked up on it like that? Show you some more here. Yeah, Chanel, Epstein broke up her marriage. I agree. That's what it sounded like in that interview. They have redacted the plaintiffs' names. Here's what they say about Trump in his individual and official capacity as before, during, and after being president, whose relevant acts include direct oversight of federal agencies, federal contracting decisions, and executive authority over entities that knowingly misappropriated plaintiffs' intellectual property and that failed to prevent or actively participate in the ongoing human trafficking summarized in over 70 nationwide police reports and judicial filings against the traffickers, from 8 years of efforts to escape sexual coercion and retaliatory child separation against the plaintiffs. Long story short, put this in everyday people language, they are basically saying that he failed to prevent it. So they're alleging that he knew, which is what I mentioned on this show before. We think he knew. And then you see in some of those emails that have been released by Congress, some of those emails show that when they were mentioning Donald Trump's name, let you know that he knew, because there were emails from Jeffrey Epstein where he said, yeah, Donald Trump wanted me to stop doing this. And I've been telling y'all, he been trying to get you to look in all these, look in all these different directions so that you're not paying attention to this. Why do you guys think Pam Bondi said, yeah, I got the file on my desk to hush everybody up? And then she was like, oh, nothing to see there, folks. And then these emails start to leak out. And then he's like, yeah, go ahead, release the files, because he knows they're going to redact it anyway. But Pam Bondi and Donald Trump ain't talking about this. Now, let's go on more here, because I want to show you something else. Factual allegations. The 8-year trafficking and exploitation venture that began in 2018 has continued and escalated under the current Trump administration. So they're saying this is still an issue. Defendants engaged in coercion, threatening or using physical force, restraining, isolating, or confining plaintiffs, or threatening to do so against their will, causing or threatening to cause financial harm, and enticing or luring plaintiffs through fraud and deceit. I want to go back to the children thing. One of the things that's mentioned in this, because I didn't read all 140 pages, but I skimmed through some of it. One of the things that's mentioned is that taking the children away, threatening to, I'm going to take your child unless you do this. This is a mafia. It's a big deal, guys. As part of this exploitation, defendants required or pressured plaintiffs to produce creative works, proprietary information, or other intellectual property. Let's go down here. I just want to show you some of these. Plaintiffs were deprived of meaningful control over their lives, including their creative output, finances, and future opportunities. Plaintiffs tried to resist or disaffiliate, but faced retaliation, threats, or further coercion, making escape or withdrawal difficult or possible. So this goes on to say that they tried to get away, tried to get out of this. They bring in Elon Musk. Defendant Elon Musk, acting in concert with the Trump administration via Doge, so this has to do with Doge as well, has used plaintiffs' safe cybersecurity platform and Abrahamic Accords defense architecture to secure Elon Musk over $580 billion in federal contracts while refusing to compensate plaintiff or procure her technology via mandate sole source FAR provisions. So it sounds like to me, Elon Musk owes somebody some money. All these people roll together. It says here, Homeland Security, under the directive executive authority of Trump, has confirmed ongoing trafficking against the plaintiff, yet has failed to intervene or halt the venture, instead allowing continued retaliation, child separation, and IP theft tied to federal programs while he oversaw. This plaintiff is alleging that they were separated from their child. Yeah, that's a good one. Engraved better have my money. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Thank you for that one. FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations. Let's go on a little bit more here. Again, I'm not going to read 140 pages, but I'm trying to give you the gist of all of this here. Trump, through his official acts and appointments, including Elon Musk's role in Doge and continued DHS leadership, has knowingly benefited from and permitted the venture to continue, including the use of the plaintiff's stolen IP in federal defense and health initiatives, and refusal to enforce FAR 6302 sole source contracting for SAFE, despite admitted prior waste of over $400 million on failed system. He has been supporting foreign attacks instead of American defense from, this is interesting, instead of American defense from Hamas, Russia, China, and India through Stargate, the suppression of the FBI, and the suppression of the DHS. That's interesting. So even foreign policy is a part of this. By the way, I do not agree that we have threatening attacks from these countries. The US government is the big threat. Retaliatory aggravated SA, leading to permanent neck and spinal cord injuries, extreme stalking, judicial interference, false CPS accusations, leading to false police report arrests, and child withholding. Arizona custody order, and there's the number there, obtained by fraud, have all continued or intensified in 2025 under the current administration's watch. There's a lot said here. Trump bypassed Congress to send over $30 billion in direct military aid to Israel through suppressing their defense of Israel in 2025, while simultaneously endorsing the Gaza takeover plan. The funding facilitated what the United Nations, Amnesty International, and the ICJ have described as a genocide against the Palestinian population, including the deliberate destruction of all remaining maternal health and contraceptive supply chains in Gaza, expressly to eliminate any possible real-world deployment zone for safe gel. So let's get into a video. I'll show you a little bit more here. Like I said, just to show you guys, like it's long, a lot. But there was another woman who made a video. Here's the thing here about Bill Gates that I want to show you. Plaintiff versus Bill Gates and the Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill Gates as an individual. Motion for default judgment and application for entry of judgment with certification of proof. It says here the plaintiff filed the complaint on this matter: misappropriation of trade secrets, sex trafficking threats against, of course, name redacted. That's against Bill Gates. So there was a woman, she made a quick video also trying to tell people about this, that like, hey, the Trump administration been moving in some weird ways. Are you being distracted? So listen to what she said here.
Don't scroll because I am sure I'm sure you want to hear this one. I was thinking earlier, I was like, why in the world did they have this cabinet meeting followed by a podium style speech in the Oval Office by Donald Trump today? Like, that's a lot for him. Are they just trying to prove that he's competent and able to stay awake during the workday? He fell asleep at the cabinet meeting anyway. So then I thought, no, there's a reason why they have him on camera so much today. So the press is looking at him and what's going on in the White House. Here's why. This is why we pay attention to small publications and independent journalists. Below, you can see this was published today, Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. Donald Trump sued over, quote, Epstein identical trafficking in Palm Beach County. It's important to remember that this is just a lawsuit at this time. So this is just getting started. The lawsuit itself was filed on November 24th of this year.
And not many other people are reporting it. And that's the part that's wild.
I'm going to do a little reading from the article because I really don't want to mess up the facts here. So it says that a sprawling new lawsuit filed in Palm Beach County accuses Donald Trump, along with Elon Musk, Bill Gates, federal agencies, and other high-profile figures of participating in what plaintiffs describe as an Epstein-identical trafficking and exploitation venture spanning nearly a decade. The filing, submitted in the 15th Judicial Circuit, seeks more than $300 million in damages and asserts that the alleged conduct mirrors the operational patterns of the Jeffrey Epstein network. Now
let's okay, she's getting to this part here. Okay.
There's more facts and figures I'm about to share, but I do want to point out that if you go to Boca News now and click on this article and scroll down the page, when you are on a laptop or desktop computer, this actually turns into a 149-page complete complaint. So this is public information. You can go digging through it and find out all you want to know. Now,
yeah, don't look at it on your phone. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see all of the 140 pages.
There's lots in this article, but I want to read a few more key points because I just think it's so imperative that everyone know. So according to the complaint, the plaintiffs claim the defendants engaged in coercion, retaliation, and misappropriation of intellectual property while benefiting financially and politically from proprietary technology. The plaintiffs say they were pressured to produce. The filing explicitly argues that the alleged trafficking scheme follows a structure, quote, identical in every material respect to Epstein's, citing grooming beginning in 1998, the use of billionaire-backed foundations as silencing mechanisms, and sexual assaults allegedly employing the same, quote, blitz-style methods documented in Epstein victim depositions. In addition to the human trafficking, it also notes that the lawsuit accuses Musk, Gates, and affiliated institutions of misappropriating confidential innovations, including a cybersecurity system, a defense architecture platform, and a non-hormonal contraceptive technology. These plaintiffs say these were provided under promises of support, but later used without permission, echoing past claims that Epstein associates exploited victims' business ideas and creative works under the guise of philanthropy. It's no wonder we had a televised cabinet meeting today, followed by whatever version of a speech Donald Trump gave from the Oval Office. It is no mistake that we are throwing out crazy things on Truth Social, like Argentinian airspace should be considered closed. It's no wonder that we are back and forth within the administration about Pete Hegseth's alleged war crimes. It is all absolutely important, but it is distracting from stories that are hidden deep within the local and independent press. I encourage you to go give this a read.
And I'm telling you, she hit it right on the nail. That's what I've been telling people, and I've been noticing it too. We have been distracted with a bunch of other things because this story somehow was buried like really deep. I'll show you what it looks like when I search for this story, because just to show you on my end, let me see here. Whee! When I Googled this, right? Peep this out. I just want to show you what it looked like on my end so you can see what I'm talking about. So we go to Google. By the way, even AI picks it up. So this is good. I'm telling you guys, I don't know. They're not covering this story, but even AI, as soon as I put this in here, even AI picked it up. Boom. November 24th, 2025. That lawsuit, right? But look, Facebook, Raw Story, Reddit, the article the one from Boca News Now. Where's corporate media? A Substack. Another X post. That's the first page. So yeah, we've been distracted. And talk is cheap because Donald Trump has been doing a lot of talking in the press right now. I'm gonna go to war with any country that I'll attack anybody, blah blah. He's been doing a lot of talking. And sometimes when people talk a lot, they're trying to distract you. Now, the Trump administration said that they cared about those victims. And before they got into office, they said they were going to fight for the Epstein victims and la-di-di-di-di. And once we started to see more of this connection with Epstein and the Mossad, and of course, Virginia Giuffre's book, which just came out recently, which pointed towards former Prime Minister Ehud Barak and accused him of assault as well. They're not going to go after Israel. That's why you don't have those names. It's not just the rich people here in the United States. It's also people in Israel too. Former prime ministers, former politicians here, former princes, royalty. We have been distracted. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll make our way to the next story. Hey. Oh, yeah, we're getting to the Candace story now. Okay, good. That's the longest one. Okay, so let's skadoodle here. Thank you, Fuzzy Balls. Jeffrey Epstein is still alive. People think that, you know. After Tupac died, people used to say that too. Tupac is still alive. Danny says, wall of horrors. Yes. Thank you, Fuzzy. Trump makes Maduro look like a saint in comparison. And thank you for this one, Fuzzy. Trump rhymes with dump and chump. Thank you, Kimman. My parents used to say, why can't you be more like Bill Gates? He was basically perfect in the 90s. He was basically perfect in the 90s. Oh, yeah. We didn't really know Bill, did we? Thank you, Chief Raka says, peace, Sabby. Thank you. Thank you, the Wombat. Epstein had direct phone number of Stacey Plaskett, which is a current Dem House rep for Virgin Islands. I think she's actually a delegate. Trump is holding the swamp up at this point. Red Cowboy says, Brina, tell us how to impeach Trump. You're not going to be able to do that as long as Republicans have control over the House and the Senate. That's the reality. They're not going to vote to impeach their own. Thank you, Mountain Star. List exists. Whitney Webb's Nation Under Blackmail. Yeah, you guys need to read those books if you haven't read them. You can get them on Amazon. And thank you, Mountain Star. Hollywood X-ray glasses from 1988. They live. In 1999, Snake Eyes Wide Shut. Snake Eyes. Oh, Snake Eyes Wide Shut. Minority Report. Skynet Terminator. Technocracy. And Palantir Teal Titanic. Thank you. Now we're going to get into something else that's also crazy. Okay. If you haven't had a chance to do so, folks, smash that like button. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Let's get into this Candace story. I had to do this one because I kind of saved this one towards the end because I'm going to spend most of my time here. Things are working exactly the way I would say Turning Point USA wants it to. And of course, the way Israel wants it to, now that Charlie Kirk has been killed. In fact, if you look at what's happening with this whole Pentagon press crew, it's absolutely insane who they allowed to have a press pass into the Pentagon and who they didn't. They're letting influencers, pro-Israel influencers in there to question people but not actual real journalists. Max Blumenthal pointed this out. Everybody take a look at this. Charlie Kirk personally lobbied Trump against Iran. 6 months later, with Kirk gone, TPUSA is in the Pentagon propaganda room lobbying Trump to strike Iran again. And I was like, you can't be for real. But listen to it. So this woman here is from Turning Point USA. Watch what she says.
Thank you. And my second question regarding Iran, there are reports that Iran's been planning on rebuilding its nuclear facilities. Iranian's president has said that it plans to rebuild its nuclear facilities with, quote, greater strength. Can you provide us on any sort of update on where that currently stands?
I can tell you that Operation Midnight Hammer was an absolute resounding success. Iran's nuclear capabilities were totally obliterated, and experts estimated that, it would take 2 years for them to recover. So thanks to President Trump's bold and swift action, we were able to dismantle that threat to the American people. And I think it was also a historic operation by virtue of the fact that there was a clear end state. We have seen this department get marred down in the Middle East in endless wars, in nation building. That has stopped under this president and this secretary. We now have a clear end state, a clear mission set, and Operation Midnight Hammer was a success in dismantling.
So everything's working just how they wanted it to, right? Donald Trump and Turning Point USA is trying to make MAGA neocons. They're trying to get back to, from what I've seen, the George W. Bush era of the Republican Party. They're trying to bring that back. Why are you bringing up Iran? That's what's happening. And if that means that some people are in the way, and you see this split that's happening that we were talking about before, where people are like, no, I don't want these wars. No, I don't want this. Why do you think all these people are coming after Nick Fuentes? They're not just coming after him because they're like, oh, I think he's a racist, so we're going to come after him. They're not just coming after him because of that. There's a lot of people that are racist. You don't see them coming after them. We have to use our brains. We have to think, guys. So they are trying to turn it into that style of Republican Party, the Nikki Haley, let's go to war and bomb people Republican Party. They want to bring it back to that. And all these people that are MAGA and are against the money going to Israel and against the wars, they're in the way. I'm trying to put myself in the enemy's shoes and think the way that they would think. And you can look at this as though you were playing sports. I think this is a better way for people to look at this, right? If you know that you're trying to get to the championship and you got 2 more teams to play, but one of them always wins and you're like, okay, we beat this team. Now we got to go and we got to take on the next team. You are in the way of us getting that trophy. So the way that you get the trophy is you go out there and you dismantle and you beat that team. Problem is too many people, too many young people that are MAGA that are against the wars. And with the message that Charlie was ending with, apparently in those group texts, you can see he also was like, nah, I'm not feeling this, bruh. I'm going to walk away from this. That's a problem. So Candace said something. I want to bring this up, and then we're going to get into this whole challenge from TPUSA. Candace said something about suspicion. This was the other day. Listen to this.
There's one more thing that came in regarding Andrew Colvett. Very close family friend of Andrew Colvett had messaged me early on, and I, again, was not tracking any of this at the time, but they had said that they felt that Andrew Colvett was acting weird, and I'm sure that's not a big deal. I think we were all acting weird. Charlie Kirk was assassinated, but moreover, they had mentioned that specifically Andrew had told them that when Charlie said no to Bibi, he lost out on millions. Now, I'm going to say allegedly because this is a tip, but I have that tip in writing. I'm not lying to you. And I thought to myself, that is so weird. How could the spokesperson at Turning Point USA be how could they be gaining millions from that? what is the structure here of these contracts that even people that are in PR, people that are like running PR departments are getting tips on the basis of donations? I don't know how this is working, but we need to figure out how this is working. I think it's really important that we learn the truth about what happened. Who's Pierre? Is it Pierre Dupont? And has Turning Point been paid? Obviously, it wouldn't be on this year's taxes. You're not going to find those on this year's taxes, but they would be on next year's. But we can ask now.
Where's the money going, guys? A couple of nights ago, we talked about that as well. That guy that was in the video, and he said the address said it goes to this parking lot, and he said there's nothing here, and he said, "What is going on?" Remember that guy? Where's the money going, guys? So with everything that Candace has been saying about Turning Point USA, I do want you to know that she's not the only one. Another whistleblower has come forward. Now, Candace knows a lot of information too, and that's why I think they consider her to be a threat. They're like, she knows too much. But this whistleblower came forward to share his experience and claims that there was a group inside Turning Point USA that was constantly working against Charlie and millions of dollars going into the stock market that Charlie was not aware of. This guy right here, listen to what he says. So he's another, more people are coming forward. See how this goes?
Joshua Peterson. I worked for Turning Point USA and Turning Point USA Faith, and I knew Charlie Kirk personally. I want to say on the record that there was a inner circle at Turning Point USA that was constantly working against Charlie and his interests and what he wanted to do, as well as there was a Jewish influence in Turning Point that he was not very fond of, that he wanted to get rid of. He tried doing this, he tried creating a Doge department, and he gets assassinated. Another thing that makes me believe this inner circle was constantly working against Charlie was because of the fact that he had a whole entire branch of Turning Point that he had no idea about, and that was the stock market branch. Now, the thing about this branch is it's been getting millions of dollars poured into it over the past 4 years now, and that's been seen through their latest tax returns, which were also filed late, which was weird, but that's not a topic for another time. This stock market group that Turning Point has been throwing millions of dollars into the stock market for the past 4 years now, and Charlie Kirk had no knowledge of that whatsoever. Now, if you also look into it a little bit deeper, if you look at the staff on that branch specifically, it says zero. It says there's nobody employed in that branch, yet they're pouring $5 million into funds for employees.
Here we go again with the money. How are they paying people that don't work there? What is really happening on, folks? What's going on?
Make it make sense. That sounds like money laundering to me. It sounds like there's some pyramid scheme going on behind the scenes at Turning Point that Charlie did not know about originally, and I think that he was planning to expose that, and that's ultimately what got him killed.
Ah, pyramid scheme. You know who else had a pyramid scheme? Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David had a pyramid scheme. A lot of people know him as that PBD podcast guy, but he had one of those where he made a lot of money and exploited people. He doesn't like it when you bring it up. That's why you'll never see me on that show. So another whistleblower coming forward again, asking questions about the funds. So now Turning Point USA decided, okay, that's it. We're going to bite and we're going to tell Candace she can come here for a debate. So they made this announcement, and watch the way that they do. And then I'm going to get into the rules that they set, you know?
So that Candace can manipulate and string along an audience of people who don't realize they are being played. Instead of being able to grieve properly after one of the most heinous murders in American history, a murder many of us had to witness, my friends have had to endure harassment from people who have gotten whipped up by what Candace is saying. In fact, I would say we have suffered more harassment from these people than we have from Antifa supporters who overtly celebrate Charlie's murder. And just like a lot of those Antifa members, many of these people take this delight in how gross and unpleasant they can be.
Dude, you give Antifa too much credit. You really give to Antifa. Antifa is not what you think it is. Antifa is not this big thing that they try to make it, like try to make it, what it. They want you to believe that it's bigger than it is, and it's not. Oh my God.
Our friends have had to endure is not funny, and it's not insignificant. It is evil. I have seen it. For months, we have received hundreds, thousands, I suspect, emails and calls asking us to respond. People have wanted us to invite Candace on the show. But for a long time, our approach was to say nothing. We did that for several reasons. First, we thought that her prevarications were so absurd that nobody would believe them. We shouldn't have to answer questions about secret tunnels or Egyptian Air Force planes. That sort of thing is just, it's beneath contempt to respond to.
Why? Why is it beneath contempt to respond to it? I saw some pictures on Twitter. I have to go back and look on X. I saw some pictures before I went live where people were confirming that those Egyptian planes were real with pictures. What do you mean it's beneath you? It should be easy to answer that.
The second reason we've said so little, though, is because there's a good rule of thumb, which Charlie followed. Do not feed the trolls. Focus on the mission. Reviving America, uplifting young people, making heaven crowded. Don't give air to people who want to tear you down and sow discord.
The young people don't want the wars, Mr. Dude. Mr. Dude, the young people don't want the wars. So how are you uplifting the young people when you have these turning point events and they ask you this question? We've shown it on the show multiple times recently. They stand up and they ask about the wars and the money going abroad.
Lastly, we didn't respond because Charlie always viewed Candace as a friend, and we were holding out hope that she would return that friendship and stop what she was doing. But a week from now, it's going to be 3 months since Charlie's murder. Candace has not changed her behavior. She has continued to spread falsehoods about Charlie's friends, and she continues to concoct new ones about new people.
Was it a falsehood, the group text that she brought forward, which Andrew Colvett had to come forward and say, yeah, that group text is real? Like, I'm just waiting for the falsehood because she seems to be supplying receipts. And I know a number of people are like, oh, she's crazy. She's losing her mind. Da, da, da. They told you Dave Chappelle was crazy too. They told you Dave Chappelle was crazy and he ran off to Africa. And why? Because he didn't want to take $50 million. All of a sudden he was crazy. Think about that for a second. She's been providing receipts. That's all I got to say. I don't really see you guys providing any receipts. You know what I mean?
She's using these falsehoods to enrich herself while dividing the conservative movement at an absolutely critical time for this country.
He is saying she is dividing the conservative movement. He is placing that whole divide that I just told you about on one person. Really now? You don't think it doesn't have anything to do with people watching a live stream genocide for over 2 years? Nothing to do with that? You think it's all just because of one person, one podcaster? That's why people started to have that split within the Republican Party, because I don't think it is.
And far too often, we here have heard from ordinary people, people who loved Charlie and who Charlie loved so much in return. These people have expressed the worry that we are staying silent out of cowardice or as some sort of tacit admission that some of the attacks are true. Neither is the case. Our silence has never been, and it will never be, equal to complacency or approval. Still, we decided Charlie would not allow this to go on. Charlie was not a coward. Charlie was a fighter. Charlie would not allow someone to spread lies about the people closest to him with impunity. And he would feel ashamed if other people were stepping up to defend his friends while he never did so himself.
Why did it pan out and show that empty chair? It's like right after after he said friends, it pans out and it shows this empty chair there with the mic.
Candace has mentioned several times that the ball is in our court. So here's what is going to happen. In the near future, there will be a live stream here in Phoenix where we address in a clear and comprehensive way the claims and accusations, the false accusations that have been made against Charlie's family, friends, and the people here at Turning Point. We plan to walk through everything carefully and thoroughly. If Candace is available, we would sincerely welcome her participation in that live stream at our studio here in Phoenix. At this point, we believe the ball is back in her court. Our motivation for doing this is not out of any obligation to Candace. It is about honoring Charlie. We feel a deep responsibility to protect his legacy, his work, and the truth. I feel that. I owe Charlie everything in my life. I feel it immensely.
Everything?
And that is why we feel compelled to speak clearly and openly now. We'll have more on this in the near future.
Everything? That was kind of a bit much, huh? You owe one person everything? Let me ask you guys a question. First of all, why does he get to pick the place and the time? When you are going to debate someone, there should be a moderator. Now, obviously, him being a part of that TPUSA circle, he should know that because Charlie Kirk hosted debates and they had moderators, or either he was a moderator a lot of times. So when you are debating against someone, you don't get to pick the place and the time. That should be decided by a moderator, and it should be in a neutral space. 2, why does she have to come to you in person? Why does she have to be there? And I explain this for those if you were never part of debate. I was in debate in high school. There is something about home turf. So, and this goes if you're having an altercation with a friend as well. Take this note, write this down. If you're going to confront someone about something, it is best that you're doing this in a neutral space. If you confront them at their apartment, you are on their turf. They are going to feel more emboldened, more empowered. Vice versa, you know, if they're in your place. That's why you pick a place that's neutral. That actually does matter. So it's like, yeah, let's get together and have a debate. I'm going to pick the place, I'm going to pick the time, and it has to be in person. In this day and age with our technology, why does it have to be in person? So she did respond to that. And I want to show you guys this part here. She responded and said that she would accept it. And you guys have got to see what has happened since then, because it's crazy.
Candace has mentioned several times that the ball is in our court. So here's what is going to happen. In the near future, there will be a live stream here in Phoenix where we address in a clear and comprehensive way the claims and accusations, the false accusations that have been made against Charlie's family, friends, and the people here at Turning Point. We plan to walk through everything carefully and thoroughly. If Candace is available, we would sincerely welcome her participation in that live stream at our studio here in Phoenix. At this point, we believe the ball is back in her court. Our motivation for doing this is not out of any obligation to Candace. It is about honoring Charlie. We feel a deep responsibility to protect his legacy. More on this in the near future.
Yay! Finally, you didn't have to get through all that shade that you were throwing me to get to the point that you were willing to answer questions, okay? Because that's what Charlie did for a living. How could you guys think that you were just going to continue on and pretend like people asking meaningful questions was somehow an attack? That's what he did for a living. He stood up on college campuses and he debated people. And he sat there principally and debated people because he felt that he had the moral high ground, okay? And that if those people disagreed with him, he could bring them over to his side. You guys have been actually acting and embodying the opposite of Charlie Kirk's spirit. Okay. And you did it even in this. It was like one big character assassination. And it wasn't to me. That's what you guys don't understand. You're not attacking me. You are attacking millions of people around the world who watched a man, an innocent man, be publicly executed and then watched what felt very much like the state collude to feed us absolute horseshit about what took place on that day. Okay.
Now, see, you guys got Candace throwing out profanity now.
Okay. 30-06 bullets do not get stopped by human necks because they eat healthy. They don't. And yes, you guys are a part of that apparatus of people who made us feel, and you've expressed it here, like you were too good to answer questions. We are already said, I got on stage and I told you that I'm Charlie's pastor. I told you I'm his best friend. I told you. You guys have even allowed people to inject themselves into his legacy that Charlie didn't even like. And we're supposed to believe you're doing this because you're his friend? Because you're committed to truth? You sat there and allowed the very people who pressured Charlie towards the end of his life to try to claim his whole legacy? And you're pretending we are the ones that are immoral? You're upset because you got caught lying. You're upset because you got caught with your pants down, but you cannot blame me for that, okay? These were your own errors. These were your own lies. And I was not going for a single second to let up on the pressure. In fact, I have been so strategic that I have been holding on to certain information, hoping that you would acquiesce to have a public conversation because I want to look you in the eye and I want to challenge you to lie to me because I care deeply about what happened to Charlie on that day. I don't think we're getting the truth. And I do believe that because you are not forthcoming about the information that you have, about Charlie texting you guys and saying that he thought he was going to be assassinated that very next day. Okay. The day that he died, Charlie knew, said he thinks he was going to be killed tomorrow. And you guys are sitting on that information. So I'm the right person. Yeah. I'm the right person to sit across from you and to ask you questions. Right.
So she agreed to do it. And I got to say this for the love of God, like Turning Point USA, you guys pissed off the wrong person. And everybody else out there, find somebody that likes you as much as Candace does, because God knows, I know people are sitting back and they're like, man, if it was me and something happened to me, I wish my friend would fight for me the way that Candace does. Like, find someone who likes you that way. So she agreed to do it. And then they decided to do something, something pretty shady. Let me see this right here. Yeah. So they made this announcement, right? From Blake Neff. The live stream we announced on the show Wednesday has been set at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. local time on Monday, December 15th. A collection of Charlie's friends will respond to statements made by Candace to set the record straight once and for all prior to the opening of America Fest. We will be live streaming from Charlie's Phoenix studio. Our offer from yesterday holds. If Candace wishes to join us in person in Phoenix, she is welcome to do so. She can let us know by the end of the day. Something that stood out to me was that date. Why does it have to be December 15th, right? And someone already mentioned it in the chat, one of the things. But then another thing that I noticed as well, Dennis said December 15th is Candace's husband's birthday. You know what else is December 15th? That is the first full day of Hanukkah. It begins the evening of December 14th, but the first full day of it is December 15th. And then on top of that, according to this, they said we're going to have other friends of Charlie's there. So it's going to be 1 against 5, 6. Doesn't seem like a fair debate, but whatevs. But why does she need to be there in person? So in other words, they picked a date that they knew would be a conflict. And it's not like they don't know Candace. They know that she has children. So you got to find childcare. You got to find somebody, got to watch the kids. She's not in Arizona, so she has to travel. And why does she have to travel to you, but you don't have to travel to her? Let me tell you guys something. Listen, my dad was right back in the day. My dad said, you'll be lucky if within your lifetime, you can count all your real friends on one hand. My dad was right, because people will do you dirty. After all those years that Candace was with Turning Point USA, and she was out there like getting people to come out and vote, and she was giving all these talks and doing everything that they wanted her to do. This is how they treat you. That's why I told one of my friends before, I said, I don't have work friends. When I was working at BU, I was like, I don't have work friends. When I worked in higher ed, I was like, no, we're not really friends. We are co-workers. Doesn't seem fair, does it? So they made this announcement, but there's just one problem. Apparently, she did not confirm that. But they went public, so they got the jump on it. They trying to control the narrative. Kind of weird how you didn't email or call me to ask about the times or availability and chose to instead tweet this confirmation out at midnight. Why am I learning about this on X? December 15th does not work in person, and 2 p.m. PT is also literal time. I do my podcast live every day, which you knew. But we will happily cancel the daily podcast and we'll join you guys virtually instead for the live stream on the 15th, if that works on your end. Let's lock it in. So again, why can't they do this virtually? Because let me tell you, Candace, you in danger, girl. Because look, I don't blame her. Even if she did have that day free, I wouldn't go there. You don't know what's waiting around that corner. You don't know what those people are going to do. I don't trust a lot of people. Call me, like suspicious, but I don't trust a lot of people. I may have, the academic smarts, but I also have street smarts because I've been in these streets, and I tell you, I don't trust a lot of people. And the way she may be looking at it is like, again, you don't know what these people are going to do. So they picked a date, didn't even confirm with her. And so she did speak about that earlier today. It's really messed up.
After my episode yesterday, I expected, call me crazy, I expected that Turning Point would reach out to me via text, via email, that they would instantly follow up with their long diatribe and to be sincere and say, okay, here are some dates and some times. When would you like to make this happen? We're going to set up this great debate. Rather, instead of hearing anything from Turning Point, I heard from Skylar, my executive producer, this morning via text, which I'm going to show you, that I was somehow already 9 hours into a 24-hour countdown that was issued by Turning Point USA. Here is that text exchange with Skylar this morning. He 8:49 said, I'm sure you saw this. And I responded to him and I said, no, actually, I didn't see this. And I opened the tweet, which went out from Blake Neff around midnight last night. And here's what he wrote. I'm like, how am I supposed to see this? The live stream we announced on the show Wednesday has been set. That would imply to the audiences that they reached out to me and we set a time. No, he goes on at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. local time on Monday, December 15th. A collection of Charlie's friends will respond to statements made by Candace Owens to set the record straight once and for all prior to the opening of America Fest. Now, if it's going to be once and for all, it sounds pretty final. I mean, I would assume that I would have to contribute so that I could answer back, right? He goes on to write, we'll be live streaming, as he said from the beginning. This is going to be a live streamed event from Charlie's Phoenix studio. Our offer from yesterday holds. If Candace wishes to join us in person in Phoenix, she is welcome to do so. She can let us know by the end of today. Why? Well, I'm sorry. If you're saying this is happening on the 15th, why am I getting 24 hours to be able to respond to you? That doesn't make any sense. That for some reason feels like this is a BS offer and a really cheap PR move. There's no reason to issue a 24-hour response and to put this up in the middle of the night, A. B, there's no reason you didn't reach out to me and say, hey, does this work? Can I check some flights, see if I can get in there? Nope. This is it. They put this up there on the 15th. The last week of our show is live. Obviously, leading up to Christmas, that's the last week of our show. obviously it's a pretty busy week. So I'm like, okay, caught off guard by this, but you know what? I sense this is a PR move. So let me say, you've already said it's live streamed. If an event is live streamed, of course, we can make it work any place. I mean, at any time, any day, we can make this happen, right? Because you're live streaming it. There's no reason I can't show up electronically, okay? I respond to him and I say this, kind of weird how you didn't email or call me to ask about times or availability and instead chose to tweet this confirmation out at midnight. Why am I learning about this on X? December 15th does not work in person. And 2 p.m. happens to also be the literal time that I do my podcast live every day, which you knew, but we will happily cancel the daily podcast and we'll join you guys virtually instead for the live stream on the 15th. If that works on your end, let's lock it in, ? Okay, we're jumping here. Let's just make it happen. Okay, that's the beauty of the internet. That is the beauty of 2025. You can literally be any place, anytime. Just send me a link, right? Any place, anytime, and we can join you virtually. In fact, today on their show, they had Andrew Colbert joining them virtually. So they have the tech capability to do this. We have tech capability to do this. Let's make this sincere and do this for people around the world who do not feel that you guys have been honest and forthcoming.
But this is not the first time that it was done this way, because I want to give you another example. When this whole issue happened with the Daily Wire, and she was removed from the Daily Wire, and her and Ben Shapiro were going back and forth on X, Ben Shapiro said, okay, we can have a debate about it. He did the exact same thing that Turning Point USA just did. He said it had to be this time, this date, this place, and in person. What is with this whole gotta be in person thing, right? So what does that tell you about the character of Ben Shapiro and all those other dudes and chicks over at Turning Point USA? What does that tell you about their character? It's got to be on my terms. They want to do that. They want the space. They want the place because they want to try to control the way it goes and the narrative. Now, here's the thing. Candace worked with Turning Point USA. She worked with the Daily Wire. She debated people for a long time. Like for years, Candace used to do like debates and stuff. I didn't agree with her most of the time, but she used to do debates and all this type of stuff. She knows how they operate. These people were coached. They've all been coached on how to debate, etc. And she knows like what they'll probably try to do. So if it's her against like 4 or 5 people, it's probably going to be massive interruptions. Every time she tries to point something out, she'll be interrupted. You guys know how this works. And I think the idea is to get her flustered to make her look like she's the one that's losing it. But why it's got to be in person, man, right? So here's the thing. I don't think they really want to have conversation. I think they figured they would just ignore her and let this just, go over their heads and keep it moving. I think they thought that by now, Candace would not be looking further into what happened to Charlie Kirk, and this would just be a blip on the radar and they could keep it moving. But that didn't happen. So out of all the people to piss off, they really pissed off the wrong person. Also, because she was a part of that organization, and because people got to remember back then, she was kind of like the female of the, you know what I mean? Like it was her, Charlie, Ben Shapiro, but she was kind of the female face with that organization for quite some time. You kind of saw Candace Owens everywhere. Candace knows a lot about these people. I think she knows a lot about these people. I think she knows a lot about that organization. And another thing I think they got a problem with is, okay, she letting too much information out in the bag. She's showing text messages and she's telling too much. We must stop her. And I think that's what they're really afraid of. They're probably sitting back wondering, what else is she going to tell?
In terms of answers that you could obviously supply regarding Charlie Kirk's assassination. Well, if we needed any more evidence that nothing that they do is genuine and that this was an obvious planned PR move, here is what Blake tweeted out just now before we went live on the show. Yesterday, we made it clear that we would be scheduling a formal response to allegations and accusations that you have made. We have decided that that response will be delivered during a live stream, as he said, a live stream on December 15th. Thank you for your response, letting us know that you will not be joining the in-person conversation. We will be proceeding without you. Why are you proceeding without me? To have a conversation that is about me. Why am I getting 24 hours to respond? Why do you need me there in person if you are trying to be sincere and answer the very many questions that I have brought up on this show? You guys weren't even sincere in what you said yesterday. You told some glaring lies about things that I have said. So we're supposed to trust that you guys are going to handle this discussion all by yourselves and respond to any and every allegation. And this isn't just some planned PR for once and for all. Like I said, this is so obvious. He is being completely destroyed in the comments because what's happening at Turning Point, and I've seen this happen before, is they now believe that they are smarter than their audience, right? They think they are smarter than their small pocket donors. They can pull such an obviously crappy public move like this and pretend, well, we tried. You know, she said she could make it work and we tried, but it has to be physically, she needs to be in person, even though we have shown that we have people join us not in person and it's live streamed and we both have the tech abilities to do that. If she doesn't make this work within 24 hours, we can now say that it's on Candace. This is a disaster, okay? It is.
And also, and they'll just say, well, she didn't want to come through with it and yada, yada. But, you know, everybody can see what's going on. Obviously, Candace puts up large numbers. She puts up large numbers with her show. And more people are watching what she is saying. I just saw this back and forth between her and Tim Pool the other day. She puts up larger numbers than Tim Pool. So I think there's some jealousy going on. But, you know, here's what I would do. If they are like, well, we're not going to have this conversation with you now because you won't be here in person and we're going to live stream and we're going to talk about you anyway, I would go live the exact same time as them and I would live stream their live stream. And so I would respond to the things that they're saying about me. Candace is probably not going to do that. She's probably not as, that's me being petty. That's me being petty. She probably isn't going to do that though, but I would. And so I think that's how you push back because it's like, so they're just going to make a live stream and they're just going to talk about you after it was supposed to be a debate, but you can't say anything. Stu and Matt said that is Sabby winning. And they can see who gets more viewers. You know? So Brenda said that would be fantastic. I say go for it.
Is a dumpster fire. That's the only way to describe what is happening at Turning Point USA today and right now is a dumpster fire. Everyone can read this for what it is. As I said, they are getting destroyed in the comments. Like, really, guys? Really? You're not going to just send us a simple live stream link and let us join you? We've had people on this show live streamed. We could have them tomorrow. I said, in response, I said to them, I'll make this work. I also attached to that tweet any day leading up to the 15th. We can do this virtually any place and any time. But no, they need to have it in person in Phoenix on December 15th or they cannot have me at all. Is that passing the vibe check for you guys? Or does it seem like more posturing and more of a way for them to simply be in the room with themselves as they all lie without any person in the room to be able to fact check those lies, who have researched those lies and who have kept a list regarding the very many lies they are telling? Okay.
You know, it's over when a woman tells you she got a list. And we do love our list. Miss Pamela said, such a good idea, Sabby. You guys should tell Candace, tell her that she should go live while they're live. Petty, 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 petty. That's being petty. Yeah, because the thing is, talk is cheap at the end of the day. They said they would have this conversation, but it has to be on their terms. And that's not fair. That's not a good way, obviously, to do this, but they're not trying to be fair. Their goal is to smear. So I think we can all see where this is going. So they're talking all this stuff, but they don't really want to sit down and debate Candace. They don't want to have this conversation with her. Just like Ben Shapiro didn't want to. He ran away too. If it's not on this day at this time, then wet ass P word. So you guys know how it is. Bill Bobby said they're pissing off. I think you mean off. They're pissing off all of us. I don't even really like Candace and definitely not Charlie Kirk, but I'm all up in this whole thing now. It's like, yeah. Oh my gosh, man. I know everybody's in this. It's wild. It's wild. Do we have the poll? Let's show that poll. And then I'll give a quick tribute to Fred Hampton. Thank you. Thanks for the poll, guys. Okay. Do you approve of war with Venezuela? Do you approve of war with Venezuela? See, I'm sleepy. I gotta go to sleep. Sabby gotta go night. 3% said yes. 92% said hell no. 1% said maybe. 4% said I don't know enough about it. That is 2,382 votes. Who are the 3% that said yes? I wonder who they are. I wonder who that maybe is too. Interesting. All right, ladies and gents, quick tribute that I do want to do. Today is December 4th. It is the anniversary of the death, the murder, the assassination of Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was killed by the FBI. Fred Hampton was 21 years old. And Fred Hampton had a goal, along with the other members of the Black Panthers. They wanted to obviously utilize mutual aid, dual power, and they wanted to come together with other groups like the Young Lords and the Young Patriots on a class analysis. And they realized the one thing that they all had in common is that they were at the bottom economically. And the people at the top had all the money and the power. The Black Panthers had a lot of good ideas. They started the free breakfast program. They started free clinics in their communities because they realized that the government wasn't going to be there for them like that. So they decided to help each other. The Black Panthers was an international organization. Many don't know this. It wasn't just in the United States, but also in other countries as well. The powers that be had a problem with that. And that includes the FBI. So they killed him. They paid a tribute to Fred Hampton 6 years ago when it was 50 years at that point on WGN News in Chicago. When you watch this, I want you to remember he was only 21 years old.
Black Panther Party this time is a political self-defense.
You know, he'll come up with incorporating some music, you know, with his speech. Someday we'll be together, Diana Ross and the Supremes.
I had to pause that because of the music. I'm so sorry, guys. Give me a second.
Doing the speech about brothers and sisters that have been killed, that have dedicated their life to freedom and liberation. He did it in the People's Church, did that speech. And people just went, it was amazing.
Akua and Jerry says it doesn't really feel like 50 years, but what happened on December 4th, 1969 is seared in her memory. Then known as Deborah Johnson, she was pregnant, sleeping next to Fred Hampton, the chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party. He was 21 years old.
It took a long time for me to be able to go all the way through from beginning to end narrating what happened.
Mattress is just going. You could feel bullets going into it.
That was the feds coming in to take out Fred Hampton. Now, their story that they told is that they were fired upon, but later on, people would realize that was not the case. They attacked Fred Hampton. They went in with the mission to kill.
I just dead everybody in there.
With help from an FBI informant, Chicago police raided the apartment on the city's west side, killing Hampton and Mark Clark and injuring several others. Cook County State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan called it a shootout, but the Panthers called it a shoot-in.
Oh, they were definitely in a gun battle.
Blood behind the door.
We saw the shots coming out of the two bedrooms.
Those officers fired 99 shots. Federal grand jury concludes that only one possible shot could have come from a Panther weapon. The account that we gave of the event is the truth.
Yeah, and of course it wasn't the truth. Right?
Man is a madman. Police officer who did that assassination then walked away from it and said to other people, Bobby Rush is next.
Yeah. Fred Hampton got together with other groups and said, let's fight this class war. Let's work together and fight this class war. Now, despite what some may tell you, we're going to get this right on this show. Despite what some may tell you, yes, he did tell them when he went to the young patriots, he told them like, yeah, we can work together on this class thing, but all that racist shit, you got to leave that behind. You got to put that to the side. And everybody didn't agree. Some people that were members of the Black Panthers didn't like that, and they left the Black Panther Party. Some people that were part of the Young Patriots didn't like that, and they left the Young Patriots. But those who remained, they worked together, and they became known as the Rainbow Coalition. And I say this because, let's go in a little bit further here. People need to understand that some of the things that we talk about today or we think about doing have been done. There are very few ideas that are new. And I think sometimes we just have to look back at what was done before and maybe add some tweaks to it. The free breakfast program that the Black Panthers started in Chicago, that led to free breakfast in public schools. That's where they got it from. So they were looking out for their community.
Is next.
If they had laid eyes on me, I would not be sitting here right now. I have no doubt.
Former Panther leader, now longtime Congressman Bobby Rush, believes divine intervention is the only reason why he wasn't in the apartment. I have to skip this part because of the video footage. Yeah, he wasn't in there, so he wasn't targeted. Let's go into, I want them to show you like some of the things that the Black Panthers did. There was a lot of miseducation about the Black Panthers when I was in school. When I was growing up, I was taught that in my textbook, it said that the Black Panthers were a militant group. They didn't tell me that the Black Panthers did mutual aid. These are things I had to learn on my own. They didn't tell me that the Black Panthers had free clinics. They didn't tell me those things. The propaganda isn't just in the media. Ladies and gentlemen, the propaganda is in our textbooks. They start us off at a very young age, brainwashing you, making you believe that people who wanted to fight for something better for people in the community, that they're the bad ones. And these politicians walking down the street, smiling at you, taking pictures, holding everybody's baby when you don't even know where their hands were before that, that they're the ones that you're supposed to trust. 66 in Oakland, California, demanding freedom for Black people. They organized legal armed patrols to challenge police brutality. And chapters spread across the country, establishing survival programs like health clinics and free breakfast for children.
Being a member of the Black Panther Party is a way of life. Many people died for this struggle, and it's a struggle that endures to this day.
This is Fred Hampton.
John Preston and Jack Hart helped with the Black Panther exhibit on display at the West Side Center for Justice. The FBI labeled the party a Black nationalist hate group, using its counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, to try to disrupt the organization from within.
Does that sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen? They called it a Black nationalist hate group. You see what they try to do, what they try to put out there? They used other Black people to infiltrate the Black Panther Party. One of those guys that was an infiltrator, I believe this was the same guy that basically told the feds that Fred Hampton was asleep, and so they knew to come in and, kill him then. He appeared on an interview in the 80s. You might be able to still find it on YouTube. He appeared on an interview in the 1980s, late 80s, early 90s, where he came forward and admitted that he was a rat. He died after that interview. So some of these tactics that we see, whether it's infiltration of third parties, infiltration of just like protest like movements, etc., that's been going on for a long time. They typically will use one of your own, and he was paid. They paid him very well, from what I understand.
And tensions were erupting between Panthers and police. 2 Chicago officers and a Black Panther died in a gun battle weeks before Hampton was killed.
One of the things that Fred said, that whether you live to be 19 or whether you live to be 99, if you haven't made a commitment, you haven't lived at all.
I mean, I think one of the reasons they moved on Fred Hampton so quickly was because he was pushing this idea of a rainbow coalition. See, that's very dangerous. If you're trying to keep people apart, you don't want them to get together.
See, that part right there. Similar with MLK. Remember, MLK wanted to bring people together. Matter of fact, now that I think about it, everybody that said, let's bring people together, seemed to be killed. So once you start getting into economics of it all, right? Like, it's one point, like, MLK was talking about, let's have, integration. But then also MLK started to get to the class issue, where he wanted to start working with people to help them unionize in Alabama. He also started talking about people coming to get their check. He was referring to reparations. So once he started to venture off into the class dynamics, they were like, yeah, we got to get rid of that guy. Same thing with MLK, or not MLK, excuse me, Malcolm X. When Malcolm X was all about, let's keep this stuff separate, it's like, okay, whatever. But the moment when Malcolm X decided to make a change and said, no, this isn't the right way, we need to try to start working together, Malcolm was gone. I think we have a little bit more here.
No one was convicted in the case. The families and survivors received a $1.8 million settlement. For many, though, Hampton's legacy is unsettled. An effort to name an honorary street after him failed under pressure from the police union, citing his anti-police rhetoric.
They can do anything they want to us.
But those who knew Hampton say his life and death reshaped Chicago politics.
If he had not sacrificed his life, then there would not have been a Washington. There would not have been a Barack Obama.
And this is 50 years later, and he still had impact, the Black Panther Party. And if I ever get doubt, I see all the efforts to distort, to malign, to make it look like what it wasn't. I say, we must have did our job.
There it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I talk about, the mutual aid that I do, that those of us at RBN do with our respective chapters, we didn't create that on our own. We got that from the Black Panthers. And we try as much as we can to help people, because at the end of the day, I'm here to tell you guys, at the end of the day, we're all we got. We're all we got. And And I think one day people are going to see that more and more. These politicians, these celebrities that people choose to idolize, at the end of the day, when shit hit the fan, we are all we got. And when that time comes, it's not going to matter what color you are. It's not going to matter what gender you are. All that's going to matter is the haves and the have-nots. So rest in peace to Fred Hampton. All righty. That is it for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I will be taking, I know I took last Sunday off, but I will be taking this Sunday off as well. I do have a friend birthday thing that I got to do on Sunday, but I'll be back again live Tuesday evening. I think Eric is going to come in and close it out.
But you'll be posting clips, right?
Yeah, clips will go out.
And
You
some of
guys
them
know
will be
how I
new.
do. Yeah, clips will go out. Some might be new. But you guys know how I do what I do when I do. Yeah.
There's one super chat wanted to make sure you saw from Mr. Walter Beasley.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Jazz
love what you're
legend Walter
doing.
Beasley. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right.
All right. And yeah, on that note, well, I'll let you go. And we'll close. We'll do a little closeout here, the old show. Yeah, one thing I wanted to note here was someone. It was Stephanie Caro on Rockfin noted the events being put on by the Answer Coalition, and I did want to bring that up here. If you go to answercoalition.com, let me bring that up here. Answer coalition.org, I should say. Here they are. You can see what they are setting up a national day of action, no war in Venezuela, in 2 days. So, so if you're able to attend those and show support for those, definitely would encourage that. If you click through on their page, they talk about all the cities they're having them in. Looks like a lot in the planning and going on. So hopefully people show up that on Saturday and do a nice big turnout. Let me hit that there, and then yeah, the other thing I wanted to know. Oops, almost took myself out there. Here we go. The thing I want to note here is there was a tweet. Where did it go? Where did it go? On about it was. Sorry, I'm just getting myself arranged here. From here it is. Oh yeah, it was Gavin Newsom. Let me see if I can bring this thing up here quickly, and I noticed it because Sabrina reposted it and had her comment on it. Yeah, here we go. And here it is. Ta-da. And this was about Gavin Newsom, how he on this interview he says, that he was adamantly against a wealth tax on billionaires. And I think this really, this says it all. Like, it used to be that, the Republicans were the party of the rich and the billionaires, and you would, and the Democrats are supposed to be, representing the working man. And, as we see, it's a uniparty. The big tent party, as mentioned here, is the uniparty. And the Democrats and Republicans, they both represent the billionaire class when it comes down to it. And, a wealth tax on billionaires shouldn't be controversial. It shouldn't be something that, is, well, maybe, it should be obvious. This is obviously what we need to address the huge wealth inequality in the country. And it ties back to corruption and, the billionaires own the Congress. And so when we're talking about things and like what do we do about all this? What you need to hit it with the MCDS, money demands money, corruption, demand solutions, right? If you go to, the old 11demands.org, and so it's all about the money. It's about the corruption. The billionaires corrupt the Congress. You need to have robust demands. The key demand is get rid of the corruption, right? To have a government that's not totally corrupt. And the solutions get into, how we run our elections, how we fund them, the rules that we have, and really just making that kind of corruption become something that's politically toxic. And to get there, what it's going to take is a big movement. That's the key thing, is big mass movement based on clear demands with a strong focus on corruption. And so like one with this, with the billionaire wealth tax, right? If you look in 11 demands, if you want to see what a real tax plan looks like that really represents the 99%, if you scroll down a bit on 11 demands and we go down, towards the later ones here into number 10, revamp taxation and funding, abolish all taxes except for highly progressive income taxes, wealth taxes, and taxes on large corporations. Now, talking about doing something like that and debating something like that is a debate and a fight that the billionaires and their instruments, their corrupt cronies, their corrupt Congress critters, that's the fight they don't want us to have. So I just wanted to make that quick, connection between, the Gavin Newsom one who doesn't even want to talk about taxing billionaires. And of course, the Republicans are even worse versus what a real debate on taxation would look like. They're saying, yeah, get rid of all these taxes that the 99% have to put out in these, complicated forms and taxes and all this nonsense. Simplify it and target it at the people who actually have the money. Anyways, just wanted to call that one out here while I had the microphone for a minute. Please do check out 11bands.org. And before we go here, we're going to look at what we got for some super chats. All right. Thanks for the super chat from Mountain Star Studio, who says, evil exposes itself in opposing truth. Go Max CO. Right. And thanks for this one, Snorky, who says, is it because there are Egyptian planes available in Phoenix? And thanks for this one, Mountain Star Studio, who says, evil exposes itself in opposing truth. Go Max. Courageous Candace questions those that deflect, lie, cheat, steal, BEM, blackmail, extort, murder. And, I would just say whether it's whether you feel like Candace is a truth teller and is onto something or whatnot, or you don't on either side of it. The point is to go from that kind of a conversation to then dig down to what we really do about things, to dig down to the corruption. I'll put it this way. If the conversation and the thing in the debate doesn't lead to talking about corruption and demanding an end to the corruption, then, it's not that useful a conversation. I think we can talk about anything as long as then we get to the corruption and the demands. MCDS. It's a good tool. All right. Thanks for this one. Oh, Walter, thanks for this one as well. Walter says, friends be fakety fake. And I think Walter playing on what Sabrina was saying, that there's, only well, she was quoting her father saying, yeah, you count on your hands the number of real friends you end up with, after you've been around a while. And I think Walter was, agreeing with that. I'm sure he's seen it. Thanks for this super chat, Mountain Star Studio. He says, Candace is leader of leaders, appreciate education. And thanks for this one. He says, I agree with Candace on almost everything. Truth. All right. And thanks for the super chat, Big Guy Journey, who said, she said she was going live and adding commentary. Okay. And Mr. Fuzzy Balls coming in saying, breaking news, TPA cancels Candace Owens invitation. Yeah, I mean, I think what TPA is, Turning Points is looking to do is to just create a big splash event for attention, and for them, attention means money, and it's all about, them and a money making gig, money making grift is, certainly that crew that's at Turning Points now is, is looking to make some bank. And thanks for this super chat, Mountain Star Studio, who says, "And I'm all out of bubble gum." And House Wins, BEM. I get the all out of bubble gum reference from the movie They Live. And I think we got one last super chat here from Mountain Star Studio, who says, "BEM, check out Derek Brose's Pyramid of Power." All right. Thanks for those. I think that is going to about do it for here tonight. Although I do like this chat here. Where do you put it? Here we go. TP USA. I get you, Paul. Let's do it. All right. And we got Firepower saying, "You can't say fuzzy balls without giggling." Here you go. All right. I'm going to close it off there. Like we said, Sabrina's going to take a break from the live show this Sunday when we usually do it. But you can catch Sabby. It'll be live on Tuesday. In fact, we're going to have, I believe, an interesting guest on Tuesday, book author. So check out that one. In between, there'll be clips from the live show. She'll probably record a few new clips, so keep an eye out for those. Make sure you subscribe to the Sabby Substack. Where if you're on that, then you'll get notifications of when these streams come out, and you can, see that email come in and say, "Oh, there's a new one that I haven't seen." You'll know to check it out. All right. On that note, I want to thank everyone for watching. Sorry, just queuing up the ending credits here. And thanks everyone. Have a good night and keep up that fight. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.